July 20th, 2023 meeting of the Centreville Town Council. We will start as we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. If folks could please stand for those. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Council has minutes from the June 1st, 2023 meeting in front of them. Is there a motion to accept those as presented or any edits that need to be made to those?
I would ask for an edit. I don't know how to edit it, but on the third page, new business item C, allocation request, there's a dollar amount in there that doesn't make sense to me. There are 3 digits to the right of the decimal point. Is that correct?
Yes. Probably not.
I don't know what the right number is, but that one doesn't look right.
Probably.
It says 19,418, 436 cents.
Oh, that was in the memo. Okay, I can fix that, yes, okay.
All right, we'll make that adjustment. Is that the only edit?
Move approval as edited.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Move into a closed session statement. The Town Council met in closed session on Thursday, July 20th, 2023 at 6 o'clock p.m. at the Liberty Building, 107 North Liberty Street, second floor meeting room to discuss personnel. In accordance with the Maryland Open Meetings Act, 5 members of the Town Council voted to close the session. The authority to close the session is found in Section 3-305 of the General Provisions article. The Town Council discussed the following topics: acquisition of real property. We discussed the potential acquisition of a parcel of land in town. We also discussed personnel. We discussed the performance of specific employees, and we discussed filling vacancies on a board. The actions we took were we selected a member for a vacancy on the Board of Appeals. The following members and staff were present: Stephen K. Klein, President Ashley H. Kaiser, Vice President Eric B. Johnson, Daniel B. Worth, and Jim A. Beecham, members. Charles Chip Kugel, Town Manager, Carolyn Brinkley, the Town Clerk, and Sharon Van Emberg, the Town Attorney, was in attendance. The meeting adjourned at 6:45 p.m. And I realize now we probably have to make the motion on the appointee in open session. Yes.
That's how we typically do.
Right, that's right. Thank you.
Well, then I will do so, if you're looking for a motion.
You can do that now, sure.
Since it seems topic appropriate, I will move that this council appoint Penny Lenz to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second.
Any discussion of Ms. Lenz on the Zoning Board of Appeals? We're going to start something new tonight. We implemented a roll call system for votes. We're going to let the clerk call the roll on those votes.
Councilmember Beecham?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
President Klein?
Yes.
Vice President Kaiser?
Yes.
Councilmember Worth?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll go into Citizens Forum. We have a list of folks who have signed up. I'm going to go through those first, and then anybody that wants to speak, certainly welcome to speak at that time once we get done with these folks. I'll just ask the clerk to read the public comment statement, please.
Welcome to this meeting of the Centreville Town Council. This is a public meeting and we welcome your participation. By attending, you acknowledge that this session is recorded and aired live on QACTV 7. During the meeting, we ask that you turn your cell phones off and hold personal conversations outside the meeting room. The scheduled agenda is available on the information table just outside. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person. The Town Council respects and appreciates your desire and right to convey your message freely, and in keeping with the dignity of proceedings, excuse me, we ask that all views be expressed in a respectful and civil manner. Comments longer than 3 minutes should be submitted in writing. If questions are a part of your comments, we'll refer those to the appropriate individual. Thank you.
Robert Gordon, come on down. Good evening.
How's everybody doing today? I'll try to only speak once today. I know last time I got 3 tries, so I appreciate it. I tried to be prepared. First, I would like to say I know that the new proposal, I can only speak for myself when I speak, but I appreciate the fact that the fee for the bag has been removed and that the option to not allow single or reuse bags is been in effect. We are grateful for that. That will relieve a lot of headaches. Today, I'm here to just plead my case one more time. I know that on behalf of myself and some folks from the Maryland Restaurant Association, we have submitted some literature that would grant a complete exemption for restaurants across the board. I've spoken with some people that are from the Queen Anne's County plastic free outside. I by no means am have to use plastic. I personally can speak for myself. I know Roger from the station, who can't attend today due to him working, had also brought up a very good point. And he was on board and I was on board also. We would be willing to put in something that would in our building that you could bring us your plastic bags, and we will ensure that they are personally 100% recycled in exactly the fashion that they're going to be. I would be willing to take my restaurant to straws only upon request in order to limit the use of plastic. The reason why the plastic ban bag is so passionate to me is I'll give you a couple of examples. First off, Easton, Annapolis, Montgomery County, Baltimore County have all given complete exemptions to restaurants. Baltimore County went as far to list it as mom and pops with less than 3 locations within the entire county. I know that I've talked to a couple people about doing that as well, limiting it so that it's only not affecting the people that live in your neighborhoods. There's 6 or 7 restaurants in this town that are all owned and operated by people that live in this town. These are the people that are going to be most affected. To quickly give just a couple numbers, if a restaurant were to go through 100 bags a day, say they're open 360 days a year, they take a couple days off for some holidays, that's 36,000 plastic bags. That's a huge number. I get it. I understand it. That number, at our cost today, would cost us $900 for the year. In order for us to switch to a paper bag 100% of the time, I know myself, we use paper and plastic. We really only try to use plastic when it's a smaller item, a single item, an item that we don't make a lot of money on. For example, we do an $8.88 menu, 4 days out of the week. That number, to put that item that we're charging $8.88 into a plastic bag, raises the cost from under 1% to 5%. As I mentioned last time we were here, restaurants operate on a margin that's 2 to 5%. Increasing our cost 5% means we don't make any money on that item unless we pass that along to our customer, which we are trying not to do. I can speak for myself. We try not to raise the prices. We're trying to give this community a fairly priced places to eat. We compete with Ken Island, that's right up 15 minutes up the road. If our prices are the same as Ken Island, why would people not just drive to Ken Island? There's more options, there's more opportunities, there's different styles. Allowing us to keep the cost as low as possible also allows us to keep it in-house. I will say this town is great about support local, shop local, drink local. So today I ask the board members, please keep that in your mind. Support local. Support the 6 people that, as far as I'm concerned, almost every single one of us have either written an email, showed up, made a phone call, done a Skype call. We're doing everything we can to keep our costs where they are and to not pass it along to the consumer. I ask that you guys give us that shot. Let us work on it on the back end, come up with a way to still minimize the use of plastic without forcing this huge cost, which I didn't get to all the way, but I think I said $900 for us to go to a paper bag. My cost would bring it over $12,000. So what used to cost under $1,000 will now cost over $12,000. And I can speak from an email that I was forward CC'd. Rick from the Creamery pays 43 cents for his bag. That number, that math equation that I just did, puts his cost over $15,000. That's the difference between a family surviving and not surviving. So I just ask for that consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Billy.
Laura Connor.
Hello, my name is Laura Connor, and I am with Plastic Free QAC, and I'm here today to support the proposed bag ban. In a minute, my colleague Sarah is going to talk about local restaurants that she's spoken with that are using paper bags. And our team was able to gather in-depth information from a restaurant study conducted at an Ocean City restaurant called Mother's Cantina, which has served carry-out food in paper bags for 13 years with 0 complaints. Mother's Cantina states that charging fees for paper bags is not a big deal once customers get used to it, and that using paper has actually had unexpected benefits. Originally, they charged 2 cents a bag, and in 2020 raised the bag fee to 15 cents. That year, the restaurant received revenues of $2,950 from bag charges to offset those paper bag costs, and still no complaints. 100% of comments by customers resulting from the charge were positive and led to appreciative comments surrounding the restaurant's commitment to the environment. In addition, I know at the last hearing, some people were concerned about contamination if people brought in their reusable bags for carryout. Both the CDC and relevant studies state that disposable plastic products, including single-use plastic bags, are no safer than reusable ones. Also, when using reusable bags for food, if the food's properly sealed in containers so that it doesn't come into direct contact with the inside of the bag, contamination doesn't occur. And when in doubt, if people are concerned about it, all you need to do is wipe out the inside of your bag. There's no longer a need for single-use plastic carry-out bags in our community. We have affordable alternatives and proven methods to offset the cost of switching to paper bags and reusable bags. Our organization acknowledges that switching to paper, that some residents in Centreville may not be able to afford to buy reusable bags, such as people on SNAP and WIC benefits. And Plastic Free is planning to pay for and provide free reusable bags to those individuals to alleviate that concern. And we would certainly work with the town council and follow any recommendations that you might have in that area. And we congratulate Centreville for being a leader in reducing single-use plastic bags in our county, and we hope that the rest of the county will follow suit. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Shelley.
Chairman and members of the Centreville Town Council, good evening. My name is Sarah Shelley. I'm a concerned citizen and president of Plastic Free QAC, a nonprofit organization advocating for sustainable practices in Queen Anne's County since 2018. I'm here to express my strong support for this ordinance. I believe there are manageable solutions to the changes this ordinance proposes, and in the long term, it will create positive impact on our environment, economy, and public health. Over the past few years, our organization has witnessed a significant shift in attitudes and behaviors regarding plastic waste in our county. Many people already have embraced reusables over single-use plastic bags and have shown a willingness to support legislation just like this. The majority of citizens now share that they have too many reusable bags, and the challenge is just to remember to bring them into the grocery store, which is why the 10-cent fee is so important. So regarding the concerns raised by the restaurants at the first hearing, I was very interested to learn more. So I've now spoken with senior managers at 5 different area restaurants who have been using paper bags for anywhere from 2 to 6 years, I believe. The response from all 5 restaurants was overwhelmingly positive. And only one restaurant reported some complaints from an occasional leak when hot food is not properly sealed. It was also reported that paper bags are easier to pack, to write on, easier to carry, plus they hold more. And for those extra large orders, when in doubt, customers are simply encouraged to hold the bottom of the bag when they walk out to their car. So we do empathize with the restaurant's concerns. And it is, however, it is essential to prioritize our environment and the long-term well-being of our community. By supporting this ordinance, we take a collective step towards reducing plastic pollution. Plastic bags have an enormous environmental footprint, and we have a responsibility to take action now to protect Centreville and hopefully the rest of our county in generations to come. In conclusion, I urge the town council to adopt this plastic bag ordinance. The concerns expressed by some of the Centreville restaurants, while understandable, are all manageable, and we have evidence to support that claim. So let's stand together, lead by example, prioritize sustainability, and protect our environment for a greener and healthier future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jay Falstad.
Good evening, council members. Jay Falstad, Queen Anne's Conservation Association. It's a pleasure to speak before you tonight. Queen Anne's Conservation and our board want to stand with our friends at Plastic Free QAC in support of this ordinance. We have to do something different than what we're doing right now. We're creating a pollution problem in our environment. And just the other day, I was driving up through Middletown. For those people that are in the audience, if you've ever done that, look across the street from where the Walmart is. And in that field, you will see thousands of plastic bags that are blowing across the parking lot. It is a mess. And so let's lead by example. We can do a better job in both the town of Centreville and in the county generally. I support it. And I hope you will also. And just finally, I want to recognize Plastic Free QAC just for a second. I was there almost on day one when they started, and you will not find a more committed group of folks advocating for our environment than these folks. They're out there doing road cleanups. They're all volunteers, no paid staff. It's really remarkable, and so they deserve a little bit of credit for their good work on this. And in conclusion, I hope you'll support this. It's the right thing to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to stick with the last name here, because the first name, because the last name kind of runs off the page. Ron McLean? Ron? Come on up, Ron. That's all right.
My name is Ron McLean.
Hey.
I'm a resident of Queen Anne's County, and I am a frequent patron to the businesses within Centreville. I'm here to speak in support of the single-use plastic ban. As an environmental attorney, I see a great deal of regulatory action and litigation involving pollution reduction issues. One thing I've learned is that human behavior is changed by two things. One is desire, what we want to do, and the other is necessity, what we have to do. Even though I believe everyone wants a clean environment, like me, and like I'm sure you do, voluntary action on its own rarely achieves the results that benefit everyone. Collective action through regulation is one way we can make progress in reducing plastic pollution. This is an easy adjustment for most people and does not create an undue balance or undue burden on commerce. And this is not a radical regulation. Over 200 counties and municipalities throughout the United States have adopted either a ban on single-use plastics or imposed a fee on the use of those plastics. I'm also an avid fisherman, and I hope some of you are too. We live in a beautiful area, and the resources are abundant. As I traversed the over 414 shoreline miles of Queen Anne's County, and I can tell you, I've seen most of it either in a boat or kayak or wade fishing. I've seen plastic bags and water from Love Point to Bloody Point and from Kent Narrows to Chestertown. This is visible pollution. You see it, it's present. You can't avoid it. And finally, one thing I learned in the military is that leaders lead. You're elected leaders of this community. So please show leadership on this legacy regulation, which will benefit the greater public good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim Edward? All right. Rich Weinfield? All right. That's everybody who is signed up. Anybody who wants to speak, please come up to the microphone.
Bob Pino from an optical galleria right around the corner here. When I last left you, I was going to Salisbury to pitch for a grant on our clean, sustainable way of making frames, sunglass frames. We got second. We got a $15,000 grant from the University of Salisbury for our clean, sustainable way of making glasses. So ironically, I'm not for the plastic bag, okay? I spoke to a couple people. One friend, I patched her glasses together. She should have replaced them 5 years ago. She can't afford it, okay? I spoke to her, we were talking about the plastic bag ban. She goes, Bob, that's stupid. Whose idea is this? I use those plastic bags everywhere. I use them in my house as trash cans. I use them in for the pets. I use them everywhere. She says, that's, now I'm gonna have to go out and buy it, okay? So that is an expense for somebody who really is up against it, living paycheck to paycheck. That in my house, there's no reusable plastic bags. The only single-use, excuse me, the only single-use plastic bags that we buy are the trash bags, and we buy them. We buy the trash bags, we buy the leaf bags, that type of thing. We're only using that one time. The bags I get from the Acme are coming home, and they're going into the bathroom trash can, where we put things that you just don't want in a paper bag, okay? And that's free. I've already paid for it because I already bought my products, okay? I use it for my dog. Unfortunately, he passed away since we last spoke, and that's what I use to pick up his poop, okay? And if I had to go buy that plastic bag, that would definitely be a single-use plastic bag, because I don't know anybody who would use that bag twice, okay? So we're forcing people to spend more and actually promoting the use of single-use plastic bags, where, and like I said, in my household, there's no such thing as a single-use plastic bag, because we use them over and over. As far as in our store, this is a prescription pad from my doctor, okay? These are contact lenses, okay, disposable contact lenses. And these are glasses. And this is this is actually a newer, cuter bag than I had last time. This is really cute with the name of the store and everything. But if you are giving a pass to pharmacies for medical products and medical uses on the 10-cent fee, I might have missed something, so you might not, I might be just wasting my breath here. But if you're giving a pass to them for prescriptions and medical use, then I think we should also, because it does take a prescription to get everything in this product, in this bag, okay? Also, this is a disposable contact lens. Talk about a waste, okay? This contact lens probably weighs maybe 2/100ths of the plastic container it comes in. 30 of these a day, 60 for both eyes, okay? There's your wasteful money. But I'm still going to sell it because the public wants it, okay? I would suggest that we educate. If an 11-year-old girl can convince me to spend $5 on 15 cookies in a box, in a plastic container, okay, we can convince people to take their own bags, but not ban the plastic bags. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Faith McCarthy. I was previously an intern with Plastic Free QAC, in addition to Kent Island beach cleanups, so a number of local nonprofits I've been involved in here. I'm currently an undergraduate at Johns Hopkins University. I'm studying environmental science and earth and planetary science. And I can say that without a doubt, growing up here in Queen Anne's County, I actually grew up right over here on Chesterfield Avenue. I can say that being here in this watershed as a child into my teenage years had an indelible effect on my love for the environment. I say it everywhere I go in the environmental community that this watershed is really something special that I hold close to my heart, and I think a lot of us can say the same. And you know, what comes with that is our responsibility for our wildlife and our ecosystems. And I've seen, even in my short 20 years of life, I've seen a decline in the health of our ecosystems. I spent so many years as a kid, walking the shorelines of the Corsica and the Chester, and I've just seen over time this accumulation of plastic bags, and I've seen it affecting wildlife as well. I now work for NOAA down at a lab in Oxford, where they do a lot of necropsies on marine mammals that often their bellies are full of plastic, and one of the most lethal things are single-use plastic bags. So not to sound like the Lorax, but I am here to speak for the wildlife on that front, and I ask that you guys do sign this into law, and I'm here to give my 100% support for the plastic bag ban in the town of Centreville. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
By all means, yeah.
My name is Elaine Studley. I live down the street at 201 South Liberty. I would like to reiterate my support for the plastic bag ban and my gratitude to the council for enacting this life-saving legislation. Chesapeake Bay is the largest estuary in the United States, and over 2,000 species, including humans, rely upon the bay for their survival and living. DNR now places 500 species as unaccounted for or at risk. The danger of microplastics as a carcinogen to humans is just as great. In the last meeting, one of the most frightening things is it's terrifying to learn that microplastics are now appearing even in newborn babies. It just doesn't have to be. We can change this. I always start my day thinking like a mother and thinking like a grandmother, and I think of my little one, my wee one, and we have to think about the fact that cancer is hitting earlier and earlier and earlier. Will she get her shot at being a genius? Will she get to learn math, or will she be influenced by something we did in her environment? Today, every water test done by the riverkeepers and other organizations contain microplastics. What is worst about microplastics in the water is that they do not necessarily break down, compounding the health danger to humans and animals over time. Learning to use fat plastic bags in stores is so easy, and it's fun. I have been using plastic bags for more than a decade when another county enacted this same ordinance. I am deeply proud of the fact that our council has stepped up to protect the bay, our wildlife, and our safety. That's who we are, and I am so proud that this council is doing this. There is nothing preordained about the damage to the bay. It can be fixed. It is in our power to fix it, and everything we do as a community takes us a step closer to a safer bay and healthier lives. This simple, easy change will save lives of wildlife and humans and tamp down carcinogens for many years to come. The damage to the bay is still reversible and within our power to effect. It is not preordained. I think the legislation is reasonable and accommodating and very, very well done. I am deeply proud of our council for the changes they have accomplished and the fair-minded approach they have taken. This is who we are. Please enact Ordinance 2023-2 unanimously. Centreville rocks.
Anyone else? Sure. No.
Go for it, we're here.
I won't even take 3 minutes, I promise. I just wanted to point out a couple of things that were discussed. A couple of people had mentioned, Mothers in Ocean City, 5 restaurants that we had talked to, but none of those restaurants are in this town. These people that are saying, okay. Did I speak when anybody else spoke?
We cannot evolve into that, so go ahead.
That's all. I'm just asking that we reconsider for a couple different reasons. Like I said, we talked about Mothers, we talked about 5 restaurants. Are those restaurants local restaurants, or are they corporations? Because corporations don't have the same costs that we do. Applebee's can buy a bag for 10 cents. It costs us 60. So
Let me
I
ask you a
appreciate.
question, if
Sure.
the council will bear with me. Every time we order from Mamma Mia's takeout, it's in a paper bag. What percentage of the food that's going out your door is coming out in a plastic bag?
I would say probably 25 to 30%.
Okay.
And as I said, I mentioned this outside with you guys, we do try to only use the plastic bags for small, quick service aspects, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't always happen that way. You know, we do our best to work with that, and I'm asking if the council would give us the ability to work with Queen Anne's County Plastic Free. I'll work personally one-on-one to find ways to also help diminish the risk without forcing this upon us. And that's all that we're simply asking. Is at this point, and I know that people are probably going to leave here and think, oh, Billy hates the Bay and he wants it to die, and you know, that's not the case. I have 2 small children, and my wife's due any day. I want my kids to grow up in a healthy, fruitful environment. But in order to do that, I feel like we should be able to work together and not just right from the jump. This is the first time the bill's been proposed, and we're going all the way. So I'm just asking for the support of maybe grant it with the exemption, and then let's revisit next year. If we still feel that it's an issue, if we haven't done enough, if the restaurants didn't team up enough, then we can revisit it and try it again. I just feel like this is I understand you got to take a step to start. I just feel like this is a leap, not a step in an environment that maybe people don't fully understand how detrimental it could be to small businesses. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. That's fine, go ahead.
First of all, Billy, I hear you. And we are here and glad to work together to how to make this manageable. I do want to clarify that none of the restaurants I spoke to were chains, and I called several restaurants in Centreville. Most of them were using plastic bags. However, I did get through to one. And I do know that the Creamery does a similar thing that you do, a combination of both. And there's possibly other restaurants, but I had short notice. So, you know, the main thing is I do really, and I think those of us who have spoken, believe that this is doable and for the greater good and the long-term benefits.
Thank you. Anybody else who hasn't spoken yet? All right, thank you very much. We will move into, public comment is open on ordinance 22-2023, so we'll close the record on ordinance 2-2023 from the public hearing.
Can I say something about that right quick?
Sure.
I would like to thank Carolyn Brinkley for forwarding all of the correspondence on this to us. It's been a full-time job for all the correspondence that the folks of Centreville
It's in your packet.
have sent to you. And thank you for handling all that. Back to you, sir.
That was a nice touch. Really. Ordinance 2-2023, plastic bags, consideration. I'm going to start off conversation on this.
If I may, I feel like I have to recuse myself from this discussion and vote due to a conflict of interest I have. I do some gig work that it would affect me. I mean, in a small way, but it does affect my judgment on this matter.
Okay,
So
all right.
I think the best thing for me to do is just leave until you're done. That way,
You want to leave?
well, just I'll watch it on TV. I'll go out and watch it on TV. Okay?
I didn't realize that was an option.
Right.
I'd
That-
like
that-
to go
Brave
with
new
him.
world up here.
Well, that way, I don't say something that I shouldn't. So, okay, make some face or whatever, you know, that might affect your judgment.
Okay.
Okay.
No face you make would ever affect me. All right. I also am a fisherman, and I was in the Boundary Waters canoe area, which is, you can't get any more in the middle of nowhere in the lower 48 than the Boundary Waters. Even the mosquitoes are just thrilled to be there. And we canoed in. You can't use a gasoline-powered engine in this place. And we canoed in for days, smallmouth bass fishing. And we toted out all this trash that mostly whiskey bottles, that we took out, we packed out, made every effort to pack this stuff out of this special place. And one of the campsites, there's a blue plastic bag in the middle of nowhere. And for those that don't know what I do, I spent my entire career in conservation, fish and wildlife resources. And I said at that moment, you know, this just can't be. You know, that a bag that started its life thousands of miles away from this place has wound up here. And I come back and think, to Mr. Falstad's point, we have to do something differently. It is the last thing I want to do is to burden Mamma Mia's or any restaurant in town. But we have to do something. And I think it starts here. I also think that a state ban is coming, I think, for sure. It might not be this legislative session, and maybe this gives a chance for Centreville to join Easton and Chestertown and so many other places, Salisbury, that have banned plastic bags, to get a leg up on other parts of the state that are not dealing with that. But I think all of this sort of laboratory of democracy that's happening in towns and counties is going to lead to state action. And I think that's going to happen sooner rather than later. And so, why not get ahead of it here? Why not do something here? And I also want to just say that, when I drive down the road, and I feel like maybe this is a recency bias, but, as a kid, you didn't see, which wasn't that long ago, you didn't see so much trash on the side of the road. And I don't know what's happened, but I reflect on this from time to time, that I now see single-use plastic bags that people are reusing to clean out their car while they're driving down the road and chuck that out the window so it sits on the shoulder, right? I see as much of that as I see anything else on the side of the road. You drive through our farm fields and the wind has blown plastic bags all across hither and yon, across those fields. And I just think, we've got to do a better job. Those bags are winding up in the rivers, not in the Pacific trash patch, but in the Chester River trash patch, in the Corsica River, in the creeks that my kids play in, that my kids fish in. And you don't have to go to the boundary waters, certainly, to find these things in the environment. And so I am strongly supportive. I would probably be willing to discuss, we've talked about this some kind of mom and pop. I just think exemption for mom and pop restaurants. I just think I'm now convinced the tougher we make this thing to implement and enforce and understand from the public standpoint, where can I get a bag? Where can I not get a bag? What's the story here? Just assume you can't get a bag anywhere. Just assume that we have to do something differently and that nothing good ever happened the easy way. And I think, I think through, I will say this, I've said it on the record here, we are obviously residents of the town, my family and I, frustrated with and don't have a lot of confidence in the single stream recycling that we have in this town. I have watched, as we all probably have, our single stream recycling go into the back of a trash can. So our family, committed to making better, different choices, sorts that in our basement and takes it to recycling domes where recycling companies have assured me it gets recycled. And so I think, that's a pain. It's annoying. But we get used to it. You habituate to doing things in a better way. That's why I'm for this. I think, and as I said to the Restaurant Association, Brendan, their representative, I don't think this is going to be quite the burden that we think it's going to be sitting here tonight. I think we'll adjust quickly, and I'm looking forward to helping out as much as we can. And, if it's affecting the bottom line, come back, in a dramatic way, a profound way, come back and tell us. Like, I think, just like you're saying you want to be back in touch with us if we exempt, be back in touch with us, and make sure it's working the way we hoped it would. I'll rest.
Yeah, I agree with that in terms of would love for us to go further, as is in the legislation, and then we can go back if we need to. I hate that I have so much plastic up here tonight. You guys know I always have a reusable bottle, which I forgot today. But I stopped using single daily contacts because the amount of plastic that was amassing in my house before I could get to recycle them was extreme. And I think we have to do more. Like you said, I think there's just no choice. I do want to clarify too that prescription contacts and glasses are exempt. You will be able to give a bag for free to a customer for a prescription product that's in the bill. And so I think we've done the right things to put the right exemptions in place. I was not in favor of any change for the restaurants until the last meeting, when the point was made that sometimes the bag is requested after the sale has been run. And is the waitress supposed to stand there and say, give me a dime? I mean, that seems silly. So we've exempted restaurants in the latest version from the fee, but not allowed the continued use of plastic bags. I think a lot relies on the consumer and the education that Plastic-Free QAC has tried to provide this community for years, and probably after pushing this legislation has some level of responsibility to continue to educate in a broader way. if you're ordering takeout from a restaurant and you're getting one item, decline a bag in general. I mean, just decline a bag. I don't think anyone who's shopping at a local business wants to burden that business. They want to support it. And so if we're hearing that if you're ordering, one $8 lunch from Mamma Mia's, that a bag is going to be a problem, then decline that bag. And I think so consumers have an opportunity to play a really significant role, and advocates have an opportunity to provide a ton of education to people who might need it. I have endeavored to use 0 plastic bags since we introduced this. I am not that great at remembering my bags. You may have seen me walking out of Acme like with a stack of groceries to my car, but I think there are things that people can do to change their behavior. And I take my kid fishing, much to my dismay, but he likes to go fishing. And there is a ton of trash in the water here. And I grew up in Queenstown, very close to Y Island, where I rode my bike often, and where you would find trash along everywhere. And that's not trash from people that live there. That's from people who are visiting here. And I think with our trail system, with our watershed, with everything that we have to offer as a town that is nature driven, the reason that I moved back here, the reason that I'm raising my family here, I'm just not moved really by the cost of a bag when I compare that to the cost of killing the earth. And so I'm very much in favor of this bill and would not like to see any additional changes to what we've presented today.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'll just make a couple of points as quickly as I can. I do appreciate the gentleman that stood and sort of reminded us and the audience about the importance of leadership, and those in the sort of the military background. We feel that with even greater intensity, maybe. We're elected to make tough decisions, and I do want to note in a positive way that so many of you coming out the last few sessions, at last count, I think it was like 200 plus that I saw, maybe more than that, emails forwarded to us. So we do take the time to read that feedback. And by my count, I want to say it's 95% plus of those of you that have taken the time to show up and speak or taken the time to write are in favor of this ordinance, has been presented tonight and as amended. And what I would just add is, in spite of that, my vote is in support of this overall. We have a history in this town, as some of you know, many of you may know, where we were one of the last communities in this nation to desegregate after Brown versus the Board of Education. That's not a badge of honor for this community, and I think tonight a badge of honor is to be able to say, and I think we all feel this way, that it's inevitable. The nation is moving this way, municipalities, state governments, and so we are a community that likes to control its own destiny, and so I think there's reason tonight to support this. That all being said, as the council member that's responsible for liaison for economic development, I did take the time to have a conference call with the majority of our restaurants, after which I did receive an email from Brendan Mahoney from the Restaurant Association, the Government Affairs Manager. Some of you received that correspondence up here, who noted, of course, that Easton, Annapolis, and there are other communities that have exempted their small business-owned restaurants, those potentially with a chain of no more than 2. That is an amendment that I would like to see supported. I know I've reached out to several council members, and I don't feel, unless somebody says differently tonight, that there's support for that. So
I think Anne Arundel County has only exempted from the ban, from the fee. And I'm not sure if Annapolis overrides that, but in talking with Brendan, we clarified that Anne Arundel County has only exempted them from the fee.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the town of Annapolis.
Got it. And so I'll just close by saying I'm deeply concerned, and I know we all are up here. We care about all of our businesses. We care about our restaurants. I think everybody up here frequents our restaurants, so we don't want to see an unnecessary burden. So I just wanted that noted for the record in our minutes that I'm going to be voting in favor of this. But I do have the dissenting view that I would rather have seen us have an exemption for the restaurants with takeout and carry-out food. I am deeply interested in participating in any discussions between Plastic Free QAC or restaurants. I did reach out to Linda Friday from the Chamber of Commerce to see, if the county's going to be moving in this direction, can we just kind of have a community-wide, county-wide effort to potentially ease the burden on our restaurants who are concerned about that very, very slim margin that is different than, say, a McDonald's or Hardee's, you name it. So at any rate, those are just the points I wanted to make tonight. And I just applaud the community coming out and really having your voices be heard. This is so much better than we have our staff here and empty chairs. So thank you.
2 comments. One, I was moved by the woman's comments from Plastic Free QAC saying that they are making efforts to provide bags to certain populations. I'm so proud of y'all for doing that. That was moving. I was grateful for that. You said that we're elected to make tough decisions. This is not a tough decision. This is a fairly easy decision. I have been concerned about the fee, and I made comment of this at our last session that, you know, I had wanted to make a motion to get rid of the fee, but, you know, I understood that the fee was that added incentive to bring your own bag. You know, my initial thought had been in 102-2B to say a retail establishment may charge, collect, and retain at least 10 cents. But I would like to offer an amendment at another place in this bill where we might address the size of the paper bags. A lot of stores use their bag, have smaller bags, it's a gift bag or something like that. I did some quick homework. The classic paper grocery bag, which is sort of societal unit of measure, I guess, 7 by 17 by 12 inches is sort of the general dimension. That is a total of 1,428 cubic inches for anybody that does math. A cubic foot is 1,728 cubic inches. So your standard grocery bag, as awkward as it seems, is 0.8 plus some of a cubic foot. So I would suggest, oh, by the way, they also characterize a grocery bag as 1/6 of a barrel, whatever that is. So I guess there's no standard unit of measure for paper bags. But I would propose that under 102-3, offer an amendment here on the fly, 102-3 exemptions under D may be the best place to do that, but I'll defer to council to help me find the right, that we exempt from collecting the fee bags smaller than 1/3 of a cubic foot.
So I was recently at Trader Joe's in Annapolis where I often get groceries, and the oranges I was buying didn't ring up, and the girl at the register typed it in and then hit a button and it said groceries taxable. And I said, that's not right because there's no tax on oranges. And she said, oh, that's just the button I'm supposed to push. And I'm like, well, this can't be. Can you get your manager? And I felt like a crazy person because it's 36 cents, but also I'm not giving the government 36 cents that they're not entitled to. And so she got her manager and she was like, well, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do then, how I'm supposed to know what's taxed and what's not. I feel like a size change would result in similar interaction at the point of sale, in an employee just not being sure when we press the bag button and when we don't, and then the consumer having to educate, or I feel like it creates unnecessary confusion. And so I would be against any change to exempting certain size bags.
Likewise.
A retail establishment like Optical Galleria, they know how big their bags are because they buy them in bulk. So they know exactly when to push the button and when not to push the button.
I just still think this is difficult to enforce. I'm inclined to vote against it.
And I call for a vote on my amendment.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's new. And she's been forwarding emails all day.
So we are exempting bags of what size?
Less than 1/3 cubic foot.
Okay.
1/3 cubic foot. I just have to write, okay. Councilmember Beecham.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson.
I would support that amendment.
President Klein.
No.
Vice President Kaiser.
No. It fails in a tie.
I want to make sure that to the point about pharmaceutical eyeglasses, so 102-3 exemptions D, the charge for paper carry-out bags provided for in 102-2B shall not apply to a paper bag containing prescription medication or prescription products provided by a pharmacy to a customer. So that does not, it's not a exemption from the plastic bag ban.
Right, it's from the fee, but I thought we had gotten rid of the word pharmacy already,
Yeah, I think we need to strike the word pharmacy.
because it's just prescription medication or prescription products provided to a customer are
I
exempt
thought
from
we
the
had already
fee.
done that too.
I thought we
That
had
was-
to, but it's still in
I mean,
there.
that was what we were trying to address.
Yeah.
But
Is there, and that's a friendly amendment, yes? Or should we vote on that?
I'm in favor.
Okay.
Either way.
Okay. So we think you're covered there. Any other comments on this? Otherwise, I'd make a motion.
Mr. President, if I may, I don't get to vote, just an observation. We had a not funny joke in Afghanistan that the national flower was a stick with a plastic AFES bag stuck on it, because there were so many around until you realize that all that trash was generated by us. And as somebody that eats in the restaurants here and has brought the plastic bags back, I reuse them at Town Hall. We don't have trash because Billy gives out plastic bags, or the Bayshore Steam Pot gives out plastic bags, or the creamery. We have plastic bags out there because we don't take care of our trash. We don't properly secure it, we don't properly tie our bags, we don't throw it away. We have people that throw things out the door. So I think you all are going to vote how you're going to vote, and I have a fairly good sense of where you're going to go, that there might be some value added in the restaurant exemption in the near term to see, give them a chance to kind of adapt in a business model, but just something I want to put out there for your consideration.
Well, it doesn't take effect until January 1, so they have some time to adapt.
True.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2-2023 as presented with the amendment we made to pharmacies.
Second.
Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Beecham?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
President Klein?
Yes.
Vice President Kaiser?
Yes.
Motion
Thank you.
Can I make one more comment before we move on? Sure. Just highly encourage everybody in the room that this is not a once and done thing. I know it's not, as displayed by the nods I'm seeing in the audience, but clearly there's a lot more we can do for our environment and here in Centreville. And if there's ways that we can incentivize our community to take this step further, and then I'll just go back, just because I don't think it can be foot stomped enough, anything we can do to work with our local restaurants to ease the burden, the transition. Sounds like we got several months to make some of those things potentially happen. And that's my commitment up here, to do that for those that own restaurants or any other businesses that have concerns.
One of the things we could do to save energy is turn the thermostat up in this room.
No kidding.
I agreed.
Yeah, it's freezing in here.
We will move on to ordinance 3-2023.
Can we get Councilmember Worth back?
He can, although he may make a face.
Train the camera right on his face.
Maybe he went home.
Right down the street.
There he
He's
goes.
Here
coming.
he is, he's coming.
We are going to move into a discussion about ordinance 3-2023, penalty reference correction. This is a second reading, sponsored by Vice President Kaiser.
Yes, and I'll probably rely on town staff a little bit on this one, just to make sure we're covering it. Just wait a second.
And folks, as you're leaving this, if you would take any conversations you might want to have out into the hallway, and we'll shut that door, just that way when we do move on, we can hear one another.
And
And you.
stay, this is good stuff.
This is really exciting. So we've talked about code enforcement ad nauseum, I would say, in my almost 2 years on the council. And one of the things that the town manager shared with me is just having inadequate force, I guess, in the code to actually enforce when there are code violations, and to make things clear to a violator. And so to read our code as it sits today would say a fine up to $1,000, potential jail time. I mean, nobody's going to jail over where they keep their trash can. And so to clean up how the infractions are categorized, and then there's a second, a resolution on the fines, but they sort of, go together. So this one just cleans up the code to make it more clear, puts all of the things subject to penalties as outlined, and would give town staff what they need to be able to actually enforce the code in a meaningful way.
We have had a public hearing on this. And this is the second reading, so we can clear this.
No,
I
we've
don't think
not
we
had a
have had a
public hearing
public
on this.
hearing.
No, it was just introduced June
It was
1st.
introduced, yeah.
I thought we had a stack of public hearings one night.
I thought we did too. Why don't we have the public hearing tonight then? I guess I'm confused.
I think so. I think it-
Why didn't
We
we?
had a stack of public hearings one night, the same night.
We did because someone got up for the wrong one.
Yeah.
Was it just budget and?
It was the budget.
It was budget. Okay,
Right.
okay, all right.
But there is one section that changes the zoning ordinance, so technically we should refer at least that section to the planning commission for a recommendation in addition to having the public hearing, which you need to do anyway. So there's time, but
Okay, so why isn't the public hearing tonight though? Help me understand that.
I was of the mind that we had already had it, but I must be wrong.
Okay, I'd like the public hearing at the next council meeting if possible.
Yeah.
For sure.
We have adequate window of time to publicize. Thank you.
I did notice it's a small thing that most of the, what do you call them? Sections, have the repeated phrase that each day the violation continues to be considered a separate offense. Okay, and that was all struck and then combined into the beginning part where it just says that each of these violations is considered separate events each day, okay? But there's one case where that language was left in twice, okay? And also, I kind of noticed that when we discuss misdemeanor punishments, that some of them are repeat offenses and some are not. I just want to make sure those are all correct before it goes forward. Yeah, I'm not,
Can you send those things to?
yeah, like,
Specific examples to
okay,
me.
let me see.
Well, if you just send them to us,
Okay,
we
I'll send
can,
them-
we
I'll
can
send them
include
to
it.
you. Right, right. There's one that maybe probably should have been, and the phrase upon conviction probably should be added for all the misdemeanor one. It was included in some of them, but not all of them, so, anyway. I didn't get a chance to check to see if
Yeah, if
the
we could
codes
just,
referred to were the actual ones in there, but I'll take a look at that too,
if
so,
we could just clean those things up before the
yeah.
hearing? Yep.
Yeah, I'll try to get those to you soon, so.
And then the resolution just really has to move with the ordinance. So
I think that
we'll
would be the
table
best,
that till the next time as well. Okay. Perfect.
If I could make a comment on this, and this is, as town manager, there was a vagueness to what we would enforce, because up to $1,000, well, I had worked with Vice President Kaiser on this, Council Vice President Kaiser on this, to kind of narrow it down so we can focus. But I need citizens to understand that this council didn't put these ordinances in place, they're cleaning it up. There isn't a choice of whether or not, these are the laws of the town. So when they're enforced, that's the law of the town. That is my job to enforce it. So nobody's being picked on. You're in violation, you're in violation. It's that simple. So, and if you know you're in violation, fix it. We give you a warning, we give you a letter. It's not, we're not looking to pounce on anybody, but I would be very grateful, particularly for folks who may be a repeat offender, if they would police their activity and just follow the code and charter. And if you can say, well, it's just this. Well, if everybody just did that, we'd have 1,900 violations because everybody have whatever. But work with us. The council and me and Tasman, we're not out to try and find people, but at a certain point, an action has to be taken. So I'll leave it to the citizens whether or not they want the fine.
Appreciate that. And we also will start doing a better job, I think, of making sure that citizens are aware of what the things are that could get you a fine or sideways with code enforcement. You know, our community has a Facebook group, and a couple months ago, put in it the section of the code about unhinged trailers, and someone said, I'm so glad the town passed that. And I'm thinking that has been in the code for a really long time. And so people just don't know, and I don't expect everyone to look at the town code maybe quite as often as Councilmember Worth and I do, but I think us providing a list, a simple, easy to digest list, could help people because they might not know. When I moved here, I left the trash cans at my house exactly where the previous owner had them, which was outside the fence. I did not know until I looked at the code that that's against the code. And so we have a responsibility to educate people, but people who live in a town have a responsibility to also understand what the laws are and follow them, and certainly should not be giving town staff grief over simply enforcing our code. Because like the town manager said, you might think whatever one thing you're doing is small, but if every single house in town was doing one of those things, the town would very quickly look very bad, and our property values would very quickly get worse. And so I hope that this passes. I hope that people come out for the public hearing. I think, you know, a lot of code enforcement things are public health, public safety related. It's a public health issue to keep your grass cut. It's a absolute responsibility of developers who own vacant lots in communities to keep the grass cut and not create public health situations. And so I think I'm excited to see us enforce the code. I'm excited to see us get really intentional about how we do things in town and to professionalize our processes. And I do want to thank the town manager and the town attorney for getting this to this place.
Here, can I just add, and you don't need to come up, Kip, necessarily, our Public Works Director, but I feel like my memory is telling me that we at some point did have something that may have been produced historically that was like the top 10 code violations. Do you recall that by chance?
No, we did that end of last year.
So that's fairly recent.
Yeah, I
we
recently
did
did it
that.
last year.
We're going to, Vice President Kaiser mentioned it, and we're going to put it in the next billing circular. Here's some things.
Awesome.
But and to her point about educating folks, that we're not going to come out with a fine your first offense. We're not going to come in. You're going to get a letter first advising you, and it's going to enumerate the code and charter page where you can find it so you can understand. Once that's happened, though, now you know. And so we're going to work with you. The idea is not to get to the fining stage. The idea is that we follow the code. Is that easy?
Sorry, I'm sorry. I think it's worth discussing here that in the budget that we passed, we have 10 hours of code enforcement per week in that budget. And I think, you know, the culture in Centreville, as we've often told people, is that it's a complaint-driven code enforcement system, which I guess I'm sort of growing concerned about, because as much as I don't necessarily want to have somebody driving around looking for code violations, I am concerned that a complaint-driven system creates natural inequities, right? So if I'm okay with everybody in my neighborhood leaving their trailers unhitched, you know, but somebody else is not, you know, there's going to be a problem, but in your neighborhood there might not be. It just, I think, and Councilperson Beecham, you know, made a good point, is that, you know, some of us, just to use the unhitched trailers as an example, you know, spend money to store our trailers elsewhere because we know it's against the rules to do that in town. We don't have a boat because I don't want to store it illegally, you know, on the property or in the road. That's one of the reasons. So I guess I'd like to get the consensus of the council about, you know, do we use this 10 hours of enforcement that we're not really using right now, and we budgeted for it, but it's not really being expended, to find someone who actually can take a more proactive role, particularly in these public health, public safety, ADA type of issues. Is there consensus for a more, I'll say, robust code enforcement paradigm up here?
And permitting issues.
Yes, yeah.
Absolutely.
Construction permitting issues, we've seen some of those. For some people, you know, they don't know they need a permit.
Well, two things I'll add. One is they don't know they need a permit, and others, I'm just replacing my steps. Well, the code may have changed on your step, the width of the tread and the height of the riser. So it's not necessary. We're not trying, look, we're not going to pay off our wastewater treatment plant $50 at a time. We're not going to make a lot of money on fees and permits. It's to make sure that we cover the administrative costs, and it protects you as you're doing things, so that you don't put something up that is a violation, that should somebody fall on your steps and you didn't build them to code, but you didn't have a permit, now you got a problem. So the ordinances and charter protect the citizens.
Once we get this passed, assuming it passes, having a 10-hour-a-week bona fide code enforcement officer, I'm not going to call him code enforcer, that gets easier to do, right? Because we'll have this kind of graduated, predictable system. So is there consensus for that approach to code enforcement?
Yes.
We have that?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe we'll put a job posting up and see if we can't find somebody that,
Absolutely.
great. Any other, we're going to have a hearing on this next time we meet?
Yes.
Great. Resolution 8-2023, municipal infraction fines, sponsored.
We covered that.
That's what we covered? Okay, good. All right, we'll move into new business, Ordinance 4-2023, Chapter 170, electronic signs, first reading, sponsored by Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to thank publicly Councilman Dan Worth for assisting with this, and our town staff leadership, our Planning Commission Chair, and our town attorney. I think I got everybody. So just to hit the highlights tonight, and for those listening in at home, this is Town of Centreville Ordinance Number 4-2023. The crux of this is really the third whereas paragraph. The town desires to amend Chapter 170 of the Code of the Town of Centreville to allow electronic message centers, also and henceforth referred to as EMCs, in non-residentially zoned areas outside the central business district, where the same or a more intense zoning exists across the street, subject to compliance with the additional standards contained herein. And so I'm certainly not going to read the whole thing, but I just want to draw council's attention to some of the key points in what you see drafted before you. If you look at the sixth whereas there on the first page, the thing to note there is that our 4 grandfathered signs, we reiterate in this document that they will have to comply with certain standards. So I think that's worth noting. If you go to section 2 at the bottom, and then as that continues on to the next page, page 2 of this particular packet under section F, prohibited signs. So that's section 2F, prohibited signs. You'll note that number 7 under there, the bold and italics, speaks to where the different standards are going to be reflected. So in this particular section 2, you see a line out of most, I believe it's all of that information. That is then subsequently added to section 3, E3. So that would be on your third page. So you see the specific standards that we have suggested. These are not unlike what we see at the county level. We, of course, have addressed here what would be sound, I can't talk tonight, light pollution, and being mindful of where someone might comply with how this is indicated for what would be allowed, and being directly across from a residential community.
How is that possible? When in the earlier part it says across the road would have to be the same or more intense zoning. I guess it could be behind it. Is that?
I think that was the discussion because.
Yeah, because if it's behind
It's-
it, the
if it's-
residential.
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
So do we need to say then in that third whereas exists across the street or behind?
No, it just says adjacent, right? Adjacent's fine.
Adjacent.
That's my
Okay.
bad.
No, I'm glad. We want to get this right.
It's used not zoning, so, I mean, it could be an existing residence in a commercial zone.
Right, true.
Right, so,
But it's based on the zoning.
right, it's based on zoning.
And then
Right.
my other question is, because we don't have the map in front of us, and I don't know the zoning map by heart, what does this mean for like the high school and middle school?
They're zoned residential.
They're zoned residential?
So as of this
They would not
draft
be able to
ordinance,
get
they would
signs.
not be,
Okay.
they would not be eligible under this as drafted. The last thing I did want to stress was, I think it's for page 4 at the very end of section, or the beginning of section 6. Institutional use is defined as the use of land, buildings, or other structures for some public or social purpose, but not for a commercial use or for a commercial purpose, including but not limited to schools, churches, community organizations, and nonprofit agencies. That summarizes the key points that I just wanted to draw your attention to.
For the authors of this, is that definition of institutional reasonably consistent with other jurisdictions' approach to this in defining institutional use?
I borrowed it from other.
All I needed to hear.
Yeah.
There you go.
And then random request, but can we start getting page numbers on legislation? Because
It is hard to
mention
point
page
to.
numbers a lot, but we don't
Correct.
have them. Okay.
And this will be referred to the planning commission?
That's my understanding.
Oh, did we need to take an action to refer the other one to the planning commission? We just sort of said it and then we didn't do anything. No? Okay, it just goes.
Let's go in there now.
I mean,
and-
I don't think you typically voted on
Okay,
referring it
just
to,
checking.
but you could.
And my question procedurally then is, do we do a second reading on this next month for the meeting we have in August? And then, assuming there's a favorable vote on this, at that point, we refer to the planning commission? Is
No,
that,
we refer it now, I think, right?
or we do refer it now?
You want their
Okay.
recommendation before you vote.
Hearing.
Got it, understood.
Now, but how's that going to affect the other one?
Same. They'll meet before you have your public hearing at
The
the
day
next
before.
meeting.
Okay, and that, okay.
And so they could do this one, and you could have the public hearing for both of them at the next meeting.
Great.
Perfect, that answer. Thank you. So I appreciate everybody's consideration of this. And Dan, I think, excuse me, Councilman Worth, when he and I spoke, I asked if he would mind being considered a co-sponsor of this. I believe your answer was yes, so thank you.
For clarity of the, when is our next meeting? Is the first,
August 17th.
okay. All right, moving into ordinance 5-2023, chapter 170, indoor agriculture. Discussion, sponsored by council members Johnson and Worth.
See, I originally wanted this to be the first reading, but there were some concerns with town staff that maybe we should address some other issues concerning the change in state law concerning cannabis. I still feel that it should be first reading because everything that I'm proposing is unrelated to how the state law has changed. We've been considering this for Eric and Councilmember Johnson and I have been discussing this with some concerned citizens for quite a while. I guess the key part of this is Section 2, where what is proposed is that instead of just agriculture generally being allowed in the business park, that only indoor agriculture would be allowed. However, the existing uses that are non-conforming would be allowed to be continued. They just cannot be expanded or enlarged or extended.
And you're saying this doesn't get
Well,
sideways with the new?
Well, because our existing code, the code concerning the growing and processing of cannabis, the town code was written generically. It doesn't say medical only. So,
But I mean, if you do this,
right.
and you can't have outdoor, I can grow 2 plants outside as long as they're out of the
No, you
public view.
have to grow them indoors.
I thought they could just be out of the
It
public
could
view.
be, I think they have to be in the public view.
No. Your cannabis plants cannot be in the public view at all.
Out of the public view.
But they can be outside.
They can be outside, just out of the public view.
I'm sorry, outside, out of public view, yes.
But you're not going to be in the PBD. There wouldn't be any residential. This is only in the PBD district that they're
So if
proposing.
someone built, I don't know, couldn't they build apartments in the PBD if they wanted to, or an assisted living, or there could feasibly be a residential use in the PBD, and then those people would be entitled, per state law, to grow their 2 plants out of the public view.
We've
If the
seen,
landlord allowed them to do it.
I don't know that we'd call them an agricultural use. It's a residential use where there have accessory plants.
so it's my understanding that based on the rules that were passed as part of the cannabis statute in Annapolis, we already have some compliance issues with the current cannabis situation in town. I don't want to talk about specific properties. So there's a need to sort of do some work. I would just ask us to pause this. I don't support this. I know what it's trying to do, and I don't support what it's trying to do. But I think I would support pausing any cannabis-related ordinances or resolutions until we've had a chance to sort of clarify what's happening in state statute, how that's coming down the pike. And I know other towns and counties have done that as well, sort of put in place a 6-month moratorium to kind of let everything shake out in Annapolis and in sort of let, as we put it the other day, sort of let other municipalities figure it out for us.
And
Be supportive of something like that.
if I could just add, forgive me, I'll be quick. I had the opportunity to talk to the town manager, town attorney, town clerk at length about exactly what you just said, Council President. And at a minimum, whether we do anything with this, I'm hoping we can leave tonight with a plan to adopt a similar restriction, a moratorium on anything to allow, exactly as you just said, the opportunity to learn from other municipalities how they're handling this. At the same time, I do want to keep some sort of document like this in the foreground, just in light of, what is a groundswell of support for at least starting a conversation formally with this council on restrictions and what can be done in the business park further. And I think we can elaborate further on that with some slides maybe at the next meeting. So that's just all I wanted to add quickly.
On an earlier agenda item, we were all very proud to take a leadership role ahead of other jurisdictions. So I don't understand why this would take a contradictory position of waiting for other jurisdictions to do something.
From a staffing perspective, right now, Planning and Zoning, or Planning Commission is neck deep in getting our comprehensive plan done, which I need done so that we can amend the comprehensive water sewer plan from the county, and when MDE refers back to our plan, that we can do all the things we need with the plant without putting this on top of it. The law is 115 pages as the draft was written. It's a lot to go through. Sharon has read through, I think, most of it and kind of sifted through a lot of things. It's not so much appreciating what you said about the leadership piece. It's they have that staff. Ocean City's got a larger staff. Anne Arundel County's got a large staff. Let them kind of sift through it, and then we can look at it and say, okay, here are the pieces that we need to adjust for our particular situation. It's more about economy and of resources.
Well, and I don't support the underlying, so don't take me on a moratorium. I mean, if you want to move forward with it, move forward with it.
And I am similarly opposed to the legislation. I just also think there's a lot to still be learned about how the cannabis situation is changing for the state and for municipalities and counties. And I'm disinclined. We hear a lot of testimony about what a plastic bag might do to a business. We take the largest private employer in town and say we're gonna pass legislation that would be detrimental to their business model. Based on some complaining, I don't support it. I would love to see GTI continue to grow and thrive, no pun intended, but they're hiring for real high-paying corporate jobs at GTI here in Centreville. There just aren't that many businesses that we can say that about. And so probably on the leadership front, I'm a little bit inclined to say, let's just pause, because I also just don't agree with it. But I am happy to vote no on it also if you want to push it forward.
Well, this legislation does not prevent them from purchasing an additional building to expand their indoor grow.
But it prevents them from expanding their outdoor grow.
Outdoor grow, which is the most odorous part of their operation, as we will recall in 2 months. Okay.
Yeah, and
Right.
I want to say something to that point. The odor cat is out of the bag, right? So I'm not sure is the odor going to get 100 times worse if they expand 100%? I'm not convinced that's true. I don't know that, right? Anything we would say would be speculative. I think it's also, from a health standpoint, it's harmless as far as I know. It is temporary. And, to me, this is a different kind of agriculture than maybe what we're used to. But this is agriculture. This is the Eastern Shore. And the line to buy legalized recreational cannabis was around the building and the dispensary. Clearly, there is a demand for this product, right? And I think if we are going to have, if people are going to consume it, then they have to be prepared to, not to say everybody is consuming it, right? But I think, as a public, we have to be prepared with what it costs what it means to grow it, what it means to produce it. To me, this is well, I've said enough. That's what
I'd like to say that we don't have any other agricultural zoning in town, and for some reason, we have allowed a small element of agricultural zoning in a business park, which is not where it belongs. That's, if they want to expand their outdoor grow operation, they can do it in the county. There's lots of farmland. They could do it. Also, if you look at the tax revenue generated for a building versus any use that doesn't involve building, enclosed building, the tax revenue is about half of what we would get if they, expand and build a building. That's, if the rest of the land there went to agricultural use, we'd have a lot less tax revenue than if we allow the commercial uses that were intended for that to be developed. We also have a limited amount of commercial space zoned in town. That's the bulk of it right there. If we allow it to continue to be used as agricultural, we'll have a lot less tax revenue.
And I just want to add, to my knowledge, and I talk intermittently with the on-site director of our production facility, not the dispensary, and I'm not aware of any pending actions in front of the Planning Commission for them to grow. Obviously, this would curtail, if we move forward with this, outdoor growth. I think at our next meeting, we can probably be better prepared with some of the evidence that we've looked at in other communities where allowing an unlimited amount has created issues with folks wanting to leave. We do have folks in town right now that they're bothered sufficiently by the odor that's generated. And I think it would be fair, this is just me speaking here, I think it would be fair to tell our citizenry, look, this is where we are, and this is not an industry that we want to prevent from being successful. As the economic development guy up here, I feel the same way about this and GTI as I do about the restaurants being inadvertently affected by the plastic bag restrictions. So I want them to be successful. I recognize they're our largest employer. But I think combination of 6-month moratorium on anything related to cannabis that has not been necessarily directed by the state, but let this stuff flow down. And then I think we do need to come back and give our citizenry a chance to kind of comment on this, to put it in perspective. And I think I can speak for virtually all of the people that have come to us to say no one is opposed to marijuana in general, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, to where they're looking to repeal anything that's already in place, stop the consumption in town. I don't get that's the feel. It is really about the odor that's being generated from outdoor growth. And I think it would be worth hearing from the industry to understand, maybe for the record, what are some of the things that they are doing, and this gets back to the moratorium. Right now, with increasing numbers of states that are legalizing adult non-medical use, there's so much activity in this area right now, and I'm sure there's an entire industry right now that is working on how you can create scrubbers in the indoor growth facilities and what are the ways to curtail the amount of odor impact. We have looked at some of that research. So bottom line is, I am in favor of this. I like the idea of being able to come back with some more information, and I'm 100% behind a moratorium if we can move in that direction from the council has been previously discussed.
If I could add 3 points. I believe during my tour at GTI, they had said they had no intentions of adding more growth, indoor growth. So I don't think that works as a forcing function to move them towards building another building. The law is written, I think the sales tax on recreational marijuana is 9%. 2.5% of that 9% goes to municipalities. So we'll see some sort of revenue stream. I think you're going to see an early surge of people buying it because they can legally now, and then I think that'll back off. But I would think something just to put in your minds as the elected officials here is there may be an opportunity to reach back to the state to say, okay, we are recouping some of the funds from the sale of medical marijuana, but we are also enabling the industry within the state by having a grow facility here in our town, that maybe we seek to ask the legislature to add something else, that maybe 2.5% of the sales tax to municipalities, 4% for municipalities or counties, that also support the industry with the growth facility. And then to Steve's point, that the odor, I get the odor, we smell it in town hall too for those 2 weeks, but I don't know that adding an acre or two means that 2 week odor goes from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, because it's going to take them an extra day to harvest, if that. Just something for you all to consider.
Well, I'd like to say I'm against a moratorium because it sends a negative message, I guess. I don't think it's necessary to have a moratorium because I wouldn't expect any other dispensaries or processing facilities to consider coming to town. I don't think the state will allow it because they're trying to have a good geographic distribution in the state. We're the only, none of the surrounding counties except maybe Kent County might have a grower. There are no dispensaries, there's no processors
Cambridge
in any of the surrounding counties. And between us and, well, there's a dispensary in Cambridge, the next closest one if you're heading to the beach. So
There's a grow facility in Cambridge, too.
yeah, there's growth there, yeah. But in Midshore, we're about it. So I wouldn't expect the state to allow another facility in Centreville in any case. So we have a lot of time to work on this. And I think introducing this as a first reading would get this discussion going. We could hear from the citizens what they think about all of those issues. The one outstanding thing is the smoking lounge, which is a new use, which we should probably get an idea of what people think about that. So that's the only one that might be introduced. However, I don't think our zoning code allows it in any case. So I don't think a moratorium is necessary. We would have a lot of time to work on this. And this would have to go to the planning commission anyway, so.
Drop your bill, right? I mean, I think that's,
Well, so when I first started on the council, and maybe this has changed, we sort of discussed things here a little bit publicly and then introduced legislation once we took a general temperature to not waste staff or planning commission or other time. And so I guess from a process question, two of us have clearly stated, I mean, to me, if you guys want to push it to planning commission and there's 3 of you that want to do that, fine. I would be disinclined to what I see as a waste of their time. And so I would want to take that temperature up here about, do we even send this to the planning commission?
I'm a no on that. I mean,
Do we want to take a roll call vote?
If I can, I would almost beg you not to send anything to planning commission until we get this comp plan done.
We just already sent them something, so.
Well, it's true. Well, to add to it, yeah.
I'm going to get to that, but they're wrapping that up.
Okay, Roger.
The clerk will call the roll.
Hang on, I need my list, so I make sure I get everything straight.
And
Council-
again, we're voting to send this to planning commission or not? Is that
I
what?
think so, yeah. As drafted, yeah.
Councilmember Beecham?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Nope.
President Klein? Vice President Kaiser? Councilmember Worth?
Yes.
Anything else on this?
I would just add that, and I think we'll see this, and Council President Klein as the liaison to the Planning Commission, I know you'll see it. I think there is interest among the members of the Planning Commission to look at something like this. So I'll be eager to hear how that discussion goes.
Thank you.
So are we considering this then as a first reading, or?
That's right, yes.
Yes, okay.
This would technically be eligible for public hearing at that same meeting then, right? I would ask politely that we maybe don't do that and give the planning commission some time, and can we at least agree to that? And also,
I can agree to that.
so we don't have a bunch of public hearings in one night.
Let's keep it moving, but move deliberately and at a pace that allows us to try to get something right.
Right on.
Yeah, they're going to spend some significant time, I think, on the electronic signs. If you gave them cannabis and electronic signs, that would be a lot.
And the small part of the municipal infractions.
Yep.
And I'm a big fan, I've said this before, I think we all sort of feel this way of getting things right versus fast. And so if we can have some additional time to, I think, make the case with some good graphics, imagery, some data, that would be helpful.
We'll move to towns, anything else on that? We'll move to town social media pages, which is Vice President Kaiser.
Yes, so we have had some discussions up here and also in personnel discussions with the town manager about exploring the possibility of a Town of Centerville Facebook page. I did not look before this meeting, but the last time I looked on Facebook, pretty much any zip code exists as a page, and you have to claim ownership of that. And the last time I saw Centerville's, it was a picture of someone's pierced nipples was the cover photo of the page for Centerville, Maryland, because we've failed to claim that page as ours. So start there. I think we should probably do that. I've also asked repeatedly for a list of who can post on the two Town of Centerville official pages that we have now, Centerville Main Street and Centerville Police Department. Who are the admins of those pages and who can post on those pages? I've not been given that information. I don't know why. It's really easy to pull up on Facebook. I feel that it's a simple request. I think we need a policy that they sign. It's my understanding from talking to the town manager and the town clerk that there is nothing that a person who might post on behalf of the town or one of those pages that would appear to be owned by the town signs to control their conduct as someone who's posting on social media for the town, or any process by which they would forfeit that page to us should they leave employ of the town. So to have a page on Facebook, if you're not aware, it's connected to someone's personal page. So like in the case of Centerville Main Street, it's very likely the Main Street manager created the page from her personal page and those things are connected and she's the admin. I'm assuming that's how.
Actually,
You're gonna have to come to a microphone, Carol, if you're gonna.
and I can help you with both of those things. So, these big chairs, seriously. The Centerville Main Street Facebook page happened in 2014. Maryland Main Street was doing a large campaign across the state, and they wanted to make sure that every Main Street had a Facebook page. And at that point, we did not. So they actually, through their consultant, and it's an agency relationship, had the agency upload a page.
So who is the admin for the page?
I am on the page, and Amy Undercoffer, because I wanted a second person on their account.
No, that's fine.
And that's it.
I just think there's something that those people should sign. If Carol decided to quit tomorrow, there is nothing that she has signed that forces her to turn over the administration of that page to someone who is still employed by the town. And so that...
Unless employee handbook says intellectual property has to be returned to the town.
Well, I think, I was just talking to Carolyn about that. I think a really easy fix would be to, anytime there is a town page, that the direct report to the person who is the administrator of the page also is on the page. Because then Carolyn can go in and
I think
dismiss me.
The town
I think
clerk,
that's probably the easiest way to do it.
I think the town clerk is an admin on both the Centerville pages makes sense to me if she's willing, because I know it is tied to your personal Facebook. And Carolyn and I did discuss the creation of a dummy page. The town attempted that. I'm not really sure why that didn't work. But I would like, if there's consensus of the council, for the town attorney to draft, separate of whatever it might say about IP in the handbook, that we have a social media, and we have a social media policy. This is a whole bunch of things about how you might use your personal Facebook on the town's computer, or how you might, it does not specifically address posting on social media on behalf of the town. And I don't think this needs to be rocket science. I don't think it needs to be anything someone would feel the need to have an attorney review before they sign it. But I do think, especially when we're talking about people who are not at all employed by the town, that are a second on a page, which again is fine, to me at least, I think they should have to sign something that they understand that they're posting on behalf of the town, that the posts are construed as speaking for the town. I mean,
And Amy never posted anything yet. So she was just added because I want a second person.
Listen, there's nothing, it's not like I saw some post and I'm like, this is like the smoking gun of bad Centerville Facebook posts.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, I'm
saying
all
let's
for
avoid
that.
it before it's a problem.
Yep.
I found it strange that I could not get from the town manager who posts on social media on behalf of the town. That to me feels like a super simple question that the person leading the town ought to know the answer to.
I thought we had passed that information to you.
No, you told me that Carolyn was also an admin, which is not true.
The farmer's market page, you want to?
That's not, you tell us all the time that's not the town's farmer's market.
Correct. So the farmer's market page is, I have content, so I can put content on there because we don't have consistent volunteers for that. So I have that so that I can add people. So that page was developed by David King, who was a farmer's market manager about 5-6 years ago. He added me so that I could add people. So on that page is the current farmer's market manager.
I'm the super
Yeah.
#1 fan of the Centreville Farmers Market, as you know. But you tell us all the time I guess I don't care who can post on that page if the answer is it's not our farmers market.
We don't under, I don't want to.
We don't have to list their names here. Apparently that market has nothing to do with us as a town.
But as staff liaison to the farmers market, one of the things I am supposed to be doing is helping them promote. So that's why I'm on the page so that I can share and things like
But
that.
there are two quasi-official Centerville Facebook pages.
Right, Main Street and CPD.
Main Street and CPD. I think there's probably consensus up here that
Absolutely.
folks should be signing something.
And then Chris, our HR manager, Crystal, was able to look in the employee handbook as it currently stands, and there's not any sort of restriction for this.
It doesn't mention anything about intellectual property when it comes to returning property.
So we probably should add that to our employee handbook, that any work product done.
But I don't know.
Can you come up?
Can you come on?
I don't think it's IP.
I'm not talking about volunteers. I don't think it's IP either, but work product conducted as part of your job for the town belongs to the town
Absolutely.
and must be
Yeah,
turned
it
over
just-
to the town upon severance of
The
employment.
way that it states is that employees must return all town property at the time of separation, including uniforms, cell phones, keys, laptops, and identification cards.
It should just say work product, work products.
Work
If you're working on something for the town and you quit and you say,
Yeah.
well,
You're in the middle of editing the handbook. You don't get to just be like, delete, start over, guys, best wishes. You have to leave that with us.
Correct.
So,
consensus for that? Yes, yes, yes.
okay, thank you. And then I would like us to look into claiming, even if we don't use it, the Centerville, Maryland pages for no other reason than to change the photo, if it is still that.
I
I'll
don't
look
think we
after
need a
this
roll
meeting.
call vote on whether or not we support the current imagery as it's.
I gotta know.
But
It's still that.
in all seriousness, I
moly.
would like to see us, I don't know if that's a legal action or
See if we can
easily
take care of that
appealed within
tomorrow.
Facebook.
It's not, you just have to claim the page. We are the official, whatever.
All
We'll
right,
take care of that tomorrow.
Excellent. Let's move, if we can, to road closure policies, which is also Vice President Kaiser. Thank you, ladies.
Yes. So when the Providence Farm volunteer group asked to close that cul-de-sac for the block party in the neighborhood, there was a whole ton of confusion about the liability insurance needed, what it takes to close a road in town. There's a form you can get from the county that they had filled out, and that was in our packet. I asked to see in writing, what is the town's road closure policy? It doesn't exist, guys, it just doesn't exist. So we tell organizations and people to close the road, you need the vote of the council and you need to get liability insurance, but that's just because that's what we've always done. It's not because there's any stated and approved policy requiring that. I also think the whole road closure thing requiring an approval of the town council has been done intermittently at best. Again, #1 super farmers market fan. I practically live there on Sundays. I don't recall in my 2 years voting to allow the farmers market to close the road. Again, we're told that's not our farmers market. So you would think that someone would have to come and ask to close the road, and then we would vote to do that, and I would be the first person to scream, let's do that.
It was about 10 years ago. The council said, you don't need to come back to us anymore. Close the road. If you need to close the entire Laurie's Row, close it. So that's
So,
where
okay,
that comes
so
from.
it just seems if things are happening in perpetuity, that's strange to me, but there should be a process in place. I also think on the insurance front, if you're an organization, not super difficult to get insurance. You can obviously get a rider on your homeowner's policy to rent a park or whatever, but it might disincentivize groups of neighbors from doing things like a block party, from doing things that are community building because of the cost of insurance. So what I had mentioned to the town manager and what I would love to get consensus for us to do is, one, have an application that you have to fill out so that there's a piece of paper that goes to Carolyn and goes to the chief that's just super clear about what you need to close the street. And also that the town could impose a fee and the town could provide that insurance, because I really am struggling to understand if I'm outside rollerblading in the street, which I can just do now, and I fall and get hurt, how that is any different than if I have a block party and I fall and get hurt. I don't understand what additional liability is existing unless people are serving alcohol or there's some other layer. And because we don't have a policy, there is no way for someone to call town hall and say, hey, what do I need to do to close the street? Because it's just whatever the person who answers the phone thinks that day, I guess. So I would love for us to get a policy. I would love for us to explore the possibility of the town simply imposing a road closure or park rental fee instead of leaving the onus on the person to get insurance. So I'd love to know from the town's insurer what that looks like. And I guess I just really don't understand what additional insurance costs would even exist because the town is already insured against whatever accidents might occur in the town.
I was just going to say real quick, I would love to see if there are other municipalities that are doing something similar to ease the burden of having to obtain a policy on behalf of a homeowner or an individual. I would love to see that, and this has my full support for a form. I'm sorry, Shane.
I just wanted to clarify, so do you want a policy that addresses basically all public assemblies on public property? So not just maybe a road closure, it could be, like you say, a park rental or some other public property use that doesn't always involve.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be good to have a policy. We talk a lot about making things easier on town staff. This just seems like a super weird gray area for the police and town hall staff to figure out.
So we do have a policy for park rentals, both parks.
And that the person has to provide insurance. And so for that, I would love for us to explore the possibility of us offering that ourselves.
We actually, about a year, no,
Carol, you gotta come up
can't
here.
talk back there. About a year and a half, well,
When we started closing Lawyers Row for the farmer's market, I was alerted because I actually bought the barricades because I saw there being a safety issue. And I said, we really need to get a handle on road closures. How does it happen? What's the process? I started that, brought the park agreement as a guide to the former police chief, and we were starting to talk through that process, and that's where it ended. But we have a meeting next week.
because we have been trying to, Carol was on vacation, I was on vacation, so we actually do have a meeting next week with the chief, Director of Public Works, Carol, and myself.
It's too willy-nilly. It makes me crazy. And the other part of it is the public safety part of it is what really is important to me. But yeah, I agree.
And I would love for part of the policy to be that road closures are granted for a moment in time or a season. We might say yes to a First Friday season or a farmer's market season, but not, hey, farmer's market just exists forever until we take it from you. I don't know, I just feel like there should be some sort of gut checking if the police or Centreville Main Street or anybody wants to come and say, hey, the farmer's market is actually a real problem for us, that there would be an automatic point for that in the renewal of that road closure.
I think that's fair.
I'm a little apprehensive about the town assuming responsibility for liability insurance for an event in which the town has no control over what happens there.
But don't we have the liability anyway right now? If I gather 50 people in our street to just hang out and something happens to them, aren't we liable?
The town?
If something happens in the street, how are we any more or less liable?
I would guess, only if some portion of property or improvements owned by the town contributed to the incident.
But how's that any different if someone has a farmer's market?
They have their own insurance.
But let's say they didn't. Let's say they didn't, because we don't actually require it. I mean, that's just something we tell people, even though it's not a real thing.
Somebody trips on the cobblestone, falls and breaks their nose.
The town's still liable. We got a big hole in the middle of Lawyers Row where the farmer's market is.
Yep.
That doesn't suddenly, I don't think that passes to the farmer's market. Someone might sue the market and their insurance is absolutely going to turn around and sue the town and say, the farmer's market has no responsibility to maintain this road. So the farmer's market's serving food and there's other liability issues that could be at play there, but also each individual vendor has some sort, at least a food vendor, I hope, we're betting for some sort of health department.
Yep, I take care of that.
So it is our farmer's market. I'm like really struggling here with the ownership of the farmer's market, but.
I don't disagree with the point you just made, but I guess my question, and I know your background is as a lawyer and our counsel up here, do you become potentially, based on case law, more liable in a scenario where you have actually gone out and gotten a policy in your name and in this organization or event's name because you were deliberate and sort of jumping into that? Does that make sense? Is that the concern kind of that you have, that we're sort of saying we have a passive role in allowing you to close the street versus we're going to allow you to close the street and we're also going to purchase the insurance so that we formally become part of an event that maybe we weren't formally part of? Or is it 6 and 1 half?
But when the person purchased the insurance, they make us a named insured. So I guess I'm saying we're already our own named insured. Okay. Why couldn't we start essentially selling an event policy?
Well, and that's one thing that Crystal's actually checking on, that we talked about, to talk to Legit to see, is there any way that we can sell, someone can get a one-day rider that is sold off of, you know, it's, they're purchasing it, but it's just a one-day.
And that's what I'm suggesting, is that we collect a fee and we, to me, that feels better than trusting that someone's got adequate homeowners insurance, that they've gotten a rider on, that they actually.
It's the non-normal activities that I would be hesitant to try to insure. Walking on the sidewalk, the example I said a while ago, people walk on the sidewalk all the time. If they trip and fall, it's the same thing. But when you have block parties or events like that, the farmer's market, knives, who knows what all's out for, you know, somebody.
I wish we had a knife sharpener at our farmer's market, but we don't.
Somebody, you know, had an issue with a knife. That's not a normal occurrence on a public sidewalk or street. So it's those non-normal activities that may occur in these organized events that I would be worried about the town taking responsibility for.
No, I totally understand that. I would love to explore the topic with our insurer and see, and Sharon, obviously, for you to look at it, but would like us to encourage rather than discourage community building and have a policy in place that is evenly applied across the board, whether you're a quasi-town farmer's market or a community block party.
And that defies government by making sense.
Here, here.
Anything else on road closure policies, events, insurance? All right, the finance officer is going to share with us the FY 2023 year-end update.
All right, so FY23 closed June 30th, 2023. It's still open through August 31st for any impending invoices that may still come in or revenue that's still coming in through the state. I wanted to give you an idea where I expect us to be, but I won't have the final update for you until probably the second meeting in September. So I expect us on the expense side all together to be under by about $298,000 in the budget, so spending less than we expected. And then for the revenue side, I expect us to receive about $400,000 more in revenue than we expected. And for us, the big piece for that would be the local income tax. We were very conservative with COVID when we did a slight 2% increase, and we are already at $1 million received for local income tax with a budget of 700 and some thousand. So I'll have a bigger update, more final numbers at the, in September for you while we're working with the audit, but I wanted to just give you an idea where we're at.
$700,000 swing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll have that in writing someplace soon.
Yes. Yeah, there wasn't anything in the packet.
Yep.
Because I didn't want to give firm numbers. I just wanted to kind of give an estimate, but absolutely.
Okay.
I'll have a package for you when we do it, so you have final numbers.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll call up the Public Works Director for bid consideration for a couple things.
It's been too long since we had memos from you, Kip.
Well, you have a slew of them this evening, and I'll make it as brief as possible for you. Okay. In the FY23 budget, we have included in there to begin the work with the preliminary engineering report for the water treatment plant. As you know, we're working with that with the wastewater. We have to stay in suit because the water follows right along with that. We advertised for bids from qualified engineering firms. We received 3 bids. They were ranging from $55,000 down to $24,918. Of that, Whitman and Reckhart, who you folks are familiar with, and they're working on our wastewater treatment PER, we're the low bid at the 24,918. Therefore, staff recommends awarding this bid to them.
This is for drinking water, just to be clear.
For the drinking water side, it's to tell us how we are doing on capacity, the direction we need to go, options that we can look at for the future. This is the process to see how soon we need to expand our water treatment process.
You say we talked about this previously. Was this in the FY23 budget?
Correct. And in one of my memos or to you is a recommendation to encumber to move forward. And I'll explain more at that point.
That's one of the line items, got it.
$30,000 swing in bid prices, anything reflected in terms of quality on that?
No, all three are reputable firms. Sometimes in the times that we are in right now, that can show a reference to, they're already working with us and they know our ins and outs. They have some of the information already, to the opposite effect where other firms may be so busy right now that we're not going to jeopardize the jobs we have on the table unless we're going to really make it worth our while.
Gotcha. Perfect.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that is the instance with this or anything.
Gotcha.
Allow me to read what someone kindly wrote for us. I make a motion to approve the water treatment plant preliminary engineering report proposal to Whitman Requart, I probably mispronounced that, and Associates LLP for the agreement not to exceed $24,918.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Clerk?
Councilmember Beecham.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
President Klein.
Yes.
Vice President Kaiser.
Yes.
Councilmember Worth.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Keep going, Kip. Encumbrance is next, but you can do whatever you want. Utility is also on this list.
Yeah. If you don't mind, let's go ahead with the encumbrances. As I just said, with this particular incident or this issue, as far as the PER for the water treatment, there's a number of things here. I'm asking for encumbrance from the 23 to the 24 budget. Reasons being, these projects have already started in the 23 budget as they were supposed to. Projects don't always finish up within that fiscal year. So, for instance, the Millstream Trail expansion, and you see where we are with each one of these under the enterprise fund with the sewer. We have sewer collection repairs, which ties into the I&I study that is still underway. Engineering for the holding pond at the town's water reuse farm, and the gateway antenna that we're planning on for Symphony Village. Under the water, you see it's Pop Taylor Park. That $36,000 is for replacing an aging water service in that area to those residents. Again, a portion of the gateway is included in this. Water treatment plant, PR, as I said earlier. Going to the farm tree replacement, there wasn't a need to replace them this spring, but there will be in this coming spring, so we're asking to move forward. The next one that you see there would be...
Kip, can we take that 50 grand encumbrance down to 24,918?
I would rather not, and I'll explain why. The bid for the PER was for the engineering firm to do it. In that 50,000 is also other things that will be going along with it, like if they need a survey done as far as property lines, if they need geotechnical services done and stuff. So that's the purpose, that there will always be.
Sure.
Yep. So.
I noticed the gateway antenna is listed twice. I thought that was just a water thing, not a sewer.
It's covered under both budgets because the sewer is also billed by the water usage.
Okay.
So both funds.
Okay, so you
cover
just
that.
split the cost between the two.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
I'm prepared to make a motion in favor if we're ready.
But I do want to talk about this farm line item. So what $2.5 million will be used for water reuse farm lease?
Okay, originally this 2.5 was put in the budget and has been there for a number of years now for the purchase of the farm. As you're aware, and we've discussed in the past, that the reason we had to purchase that because the person that was in charge of that department with MDE said we had to own the farm for water reuse to use it as calculating capacity. That has all changed. We don't have to own the farm, but we do have to enter into a lease agreement to be able to have a farmer take the water and from us, so that we're not stuck in mid-year or mid.
Sure. So I guess my question is, farmers all around the state are clamoring for irrigated water. Why are we paying people to take this stuff?
We're not even saying we're paying people to take it, but there's factors that we may have to pay to get it there.
Irrigation equipment or pumping?
Infrastructure. Infrastructure.
Okay.
I thought for the county, we did still have to own it. Am I wrong?
Well, the county would have to amend the comprehensive sewer and
That's,
water
yeah,
plan
part of
for
the-
the capacity.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, let's just strike the word lease. What do you say?
Yeah.
So we're not in debt.
Sure.
Used for water reuse farm.
Yeah, that's fine.
I
Yeah.
have no
That's
problem
not in the
with that.
motion anyway. But yeah.
Okay.
I just want to say this while we're on the topic. I think it's incumbent on this council this is the biggest project maybe in the history, for sure in the history of Centreville. And I think we have seen other conversations with MDE over the years kind of go a little bit sideways in interpretation over time. Like for instance, the trees, where we learn about a rule of thumb that they have to be, a certain distance from the spray irrigation heads and this sort of thing, costs us money. I'm insisting to the extent I can that we get this policy decision about we don't have to own this property in fee title in writing, signed by the secretary.
We
Signed by somebody.
do have it in black and white. It's not from the secretary, but it is from the division chief.
Okay, so Lee Emery or some,
No, it's
that doesn't matter.
Della.
But it
Is
could
it an
change.
email? I mean, I get what you're saying.
To your
Something
point,
signed.
Council President, that could easily change with a change of personnel.
Thank you.
Or a change of administrations. It could change again. So
We're working to secure a meeting with the secretary. We had a conversation with her at MML, and she does want to meet with us. We can bring that to the table.
Yeah.
she was pretty nearby today.
We should also meet with the county commissioners as well to
We
try to
should do
resolve
that.
that issue.
We need a comprehensive sewer and water plan amendment
Right.
for almost any of this stuff.
Exactly.
I mean, even a traditional spray field, we're going to need a sewer amendment.
Anything beyond what we had, you need it, and it has to, the way is with the county, the actual property owner has to petition the county for the change also. So we're all working that way.
I think it's we talk a lot about a lot of what I consider kind of minor things. This is not minor. Getting this right, as I know you understand well, getting this right, and I think to be sitting on the back end of this and be like, oh, actually, you do need a farm, and sorry, like that's just going to be unacceptable. So I think we just need to get that in writing, signed by an MDE official, maybe not the secretary, but somebody has to sign a letter that our interpretation of the law is this, and we go forward from there.
All I can tell you is, welcome to my 40 years of experience working with MDE.
Right.
And as Jim said, every time that things change in politics, nothing stays the same.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, and
Nope, that's fine.
there is a motion to be made here if somebody wants to make it.
I'll do that. I'd like to make a motion to approve the encumbrance of $128,500 in general fund parks and the encumbrance of $3,258,000 in the enterprise fund for capital improvements involving water, farm, and sewer.
I'd like to offer an amendment to strike the gateway antenna. 2 line items. I think it's absolutely absurd to have an 8-story tall antenna in a residential area.
We'll vote on the amendment and then well, there's no second on either of those things.
I'll second the original amendment, or the original motion.
Okay, is there a second for the amendment? The amendment fails for lack of a second. We'll vote on the underlying motion.
Councilmember Beecham.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
President Klein. Vice President Kaiser. Councilmember Worth.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next item I have before you is the ZIP utility purchase consideration. ZIP utility
There
is...
are two memos in front. One
Oh,
is
I'm sorry, yes. There,
pages, one has one.
there's one there, there's an updated one
That was-
handed out.
Yeah, so the one
too.
tonight reflects the
page.
3-year full agreement, yeah.
There's just a letter attached to the first one for your.
Okay, all right.
Apologize, I'm trying to follow. So the 2-page one with the attached letter, the attachment's correct, and the separate freestanding is the current.
There's a difference in price here.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry for the confusion there.
No, it's okay.
But we thought we had things. This happens when we have the agenda to you a week ahead of time. Things tend to change over the period. But anyhow, ZIP Utility is a utility software. It offers so many things for us. We can do the GPS mapping on here from our existing utilities and everything. This is geared for our public works staff, our utility staff. There's so much that it can do between asset management and everything. This is kind of a niche that other software that we've talked to you about and we'll be bringing to you don't have this detail on the utility side. We've been working with them for a little over a month now. For the past month, they gave us a demo where we were actually able to get our staff involved with this, and they got an app on their phones and on our iPads that we use and stuff where they're trying it out and they're making changes and notations on it to the utilities that are actually in the ground in there. They're making notes in it, and from any place they can go on and see what utilities are underground, what the utilities are made of, where they're located, where the meters are located, what the meter is in the meter pit, that kind of stuff. This can also generate work orders and when the work orders are complete, everybody tracks it. So that's about the simplest version I can give you and quickest version. You'll also see a testimony from Gary Phillips, who is now our utility supervisor. He's been using it with his guys, our staff, and they can't believe how much easier this makes things for them, even a little bit that they've used it and added into it. With that being said, the price comes down to, for this, is $4,200 for the first year. The second year is $5,040. The third year is $5,040. With this, there's 30% reduction to get this price, because if we close on this deal with them within the 60 days of us talking to them and the trial of it, all the trial stuff that we've done goes in to be part of the record, so we've already started it, got information in it. The other thing that it does, the other part of that 30% reduction is because we're going to a 3-year term instead of a 2-year term.
Is funding for this in the budget?
Yes, we have funding available in the budget under contract services.
But this wasn't necessarily.
Not specific.
They're not, no, they're not on the line on, under
We had
contract.
talked about software. Yeah.
I'll put it, it's like this, under contract services, that covers a large number of contract services, labs, all that. It's not listed out on a line.
I was just curious.
But this is built into it, or something similar to this. And this is actually much, much cheaper than we could have imagined.
I really appreciate this letter from the staff about how meaningful it is. It's a small dollar amount against the town's total budget, but since I truly do not understand the work that you do, I just know I want my water to run. It's helpful to have. It's helpful to have that information. So thank you, and thank you to your staff for doing that.
Mm-hmm. I can just echo that, and then I'm really just impressed by the work assignment ability, geo positioning of projects, and so I'm assuming this, it does say digital record keeping, but that this tool allows for some really good reports to be run where, you know, you could also look up a particular employee to say what projects were they involved with in the last year, and now you can quantify and qualify some of that data much more readily. So I'm very supportive of this.
If I remember in the original town manager's budget proposal, you had a big number for software. And it seemed like one of them was some sort of GIS utility.
Citywide, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. One of the issues we run into that's been really frustrating is looking for, is there a comprehensive one that does all these things? Why are we having to buy this piece here and this piece here? But at the end of the day, if we're putting them together so that this data can then be collated with the other software so that when we build budgets around what do we need for utilities, we have a fairly cogent idea of what real numbers we're going to be looking at when we start planning out replacements and things of that nature. Capturing simple things like, well, we did the gooseneck removal for lead in this location, and we're not going back and saying, well, did we have this? The number of spreadsheets we had across town was mind-numbing. It was just spreadsheet for this, and those things get lost. Somebody files it under a different name. This is a way for us to kind of capture data, and now that we've moved to the cloud and say, hey, we've got it here. If, God forbid, something happens to Kip or that Dave decides he wants to go fishing more than he wants to fix our system, the next person can look at it and have a code right there's all of our data. So, you know, it is a good point. Yeah, we may come back with that, Jim, but what we have also found is we keep digging and digging and digging, and it gives us an option to say, well, I like what you got here. I don't like the price point. I can do what they can do. And you can see this at 30 points. So, hey, try it out. And then we've done a lot of work with it, and then they got that data already captured. We're going to have to go back and do it. But yes.
I know we crossed this with accounting software years ago. The portability and common denominator of the data that's ours, but in their system, if in year 4 you want to go to a different software, is it of a common language, common format that it migrates, can migrate?
Yes, that was, the simplicity of this program is to me was just, I couldn't believe it. I mean, that when my guys can go out in the field and use this, and, you know, they like it, you know, to me, this is something that's unfathomable. When I started 40 years ago doing this stuff, I'd have never thought I could have gone out in the field and done that. So, and yes, it'll transfer data from program to program.
Thank you. That Jim, we are all well versed in that situation. So that is one of the first
ask the question, though.
Yeah, it's one of the first questions asked is this is there what's the word? Proprietary data here that your software won't interact with the other softwares out there. So we look at being able to cross.
Well, I'm feeling like we've talked this one enough. I make a motion to approve Ziptility software purchase for a 3-year agreement not to exceed $14,280 for the 3-year agreement.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I just had a question. Does this track water and wastewater, or just water?
Yes, water and wastewater.
Okay, great.
Yes.
All right.
Councilmember Beecham.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
President Klein.
Yes.
Vice President Kaiser.
Yes.
Councilmember Worth.
Yes.
I think you're going to walk us through the end-of-year streets department purchases.
Thank you. This is just information for you, wanted to make it public and everything. As I said before, not everything is listed out on purchases or anything, but it does fall into certain categories of the budget and everything. At the end of the year, we had a little money left over in accounts, and these things happen to fall within those accounts. As you see there, it's a number of things there, and as I said, they're coming out of different accounts within the budget from 2023. So.
I think we can probably dispense with you reading through them all, but I do want to say that a while ago we made a policy here that we didn't have to bring stuff that was in the budget back to us, and I remember saying I was willing to do that because it saved you all time and money, and I wanted to see things like this, and I love this. I mean, this is fantastic. I think I would like to see more of this to the extent that we have it. What are we spending money on in the budget? When are we doing it? How much does it cost? I mean, I think this is great. So thank you very much.
So we're going to get some snow this winter, since we're getting all this.
I bought a snow blower at home and it just sits out back.
Insurance against it.
I'm hoping that's an insurance policy.
I'm not moving it until it snows.
And that's the last on my list for tonight, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Looks like we have some correspondence to MML. We might want to talk about in the correspondence section here.
So one of the things at MML, one of the last sessions was the legislative recap, and I'll get some more of that in some of my talking when I get to my section. But Dan and I were sitting through this thing, and they talked about the legislative action request, and they were very active with the Westminster, the law that allows them to do their pilot program for the indirect potable reuse. There were a lot of secondary and tertiary issues to that, but they were of a mind that they felt they should move, that it was a good, that bill is a good, that law is a good first step, but it's limited to Westminster. We have equity in the potential for water reuse. So we got to talking to them. I went to their workshop, and we're going through this. It was their lawyer lobbyist sitting there talking to us, and they said, if you want to submit one, you can go ahead and do it. It requires council approval. And I said, well, our next meeting's not till the 20th of July, so I can't give you council approval. He says, well, the paperwork needs to be in by the 30th of June, which is in 2 days. And there's no way I can get that to you all. So I went ahead and submitted this request. It was very raw, sat there with the guy writing it. But it's conditional on you all saying yes, no. Now, there's no guarantee that we submit this to MML for activity, that it does get taken up by the Legislative Activity Committee. They can look at it, they'll weigh it and see if they want to go forward. But I felt the answer is no if we don't at least put the paper forward, and then that you all could see it and understand that as they put it to us, and Dan and I heard, was the law that allows Westminster to do water reuse is a pilot program, but it's only them. That their desire, and MML was going to push this, and we wanted to help that along, was to expand that to other municipalities in the state, to give them that opportunity to maybe engage a pilot program or look into water reuse. If we want to move in that direction, you all had the demonstration from WATEC. I think them getting this onto the plate and pushing this in the legislature, and possibly us looking at it to double team it with HJM, is a good first step. They said I can simply email them your approval.
I have a process question. Could this not be something that was sent to us in between meetings because it has a deadline and and then we would just ratify that action at our next meeting?
If it's an opinion on legislative action, it's generally considered to have to be done in open session. There's a.
But it's not a legislative action. It's opinion on requesting an organization that we're a member of consider something.
We would have to have an open meeting, I think. We would just
Right,
schedule
I'm
a
saying,
quick meeting
couldn't we
and
do it
just
in
Right.
between and then ratify in the next regular meeting?
I don't know if there's a distinction from that. There is an open meetings compliance opinion about an opinion on a bill, say that the legislature is considering that has to be done in open session. It can't be done by emails in between meetings. But I would have to look and see if there's a distinction we could make for something like this.
Because this is us making a request to an organization that we're a member of. So I was just curious about that from a process perspective.
Thank you for asking that.
Also would think, not that you're asking for feedback on this already submitted form, but that more than MDE would be affected by this, Department of Planning, others.
Well, that was,
I would just,
yeah, when I was sitting down with Bill George and writing it, I said, you know, we're kind of kludging this together. I said, we deal with commerce, we deal with transportation. There are other equities involved here, you know, like you said, planning. And he said, this is just to get the request in. He said, the finer details will be addressed.
I just have one suggestion, if I'm reading this correctly, under number 2, where it says describe the requested legislation. Should that maybe be, and if I'm wrong in what you were thinking on this, just let me know, expand the options and streamline the approval process for. Is that kind of what you're, so we want more options and we want the approval process to be shortened?
And there's another issue I'm going to...
And the reason I say that is because when I read expand the approval process, to me that could mean slow it down. I know that's not what you meant, obviously, but so this has my support. I just think maybe if they would entertain having just that additional text clarified, again, to expand the options and streamline the approval process for it.
I mean, and a good point. It's one of those things I wish I'd have had time, a week or two, to sit down and really craft something that, you know, wasn't scribbled.
I'm sure MML will follow up with you.
Yeah, they will.
It's not,
Yeah.
you're just tossing it over the wall and. You
No,
know,
they will follow up, and in fact, well, since we're on the topic of this, you know, I'll just segue into it. The Oregon State House and Senate, and I'm going to read to you a bit, so bear with me, passed a bill where the Environmental Quality and Water Resource Department, their MDE, will have to identify regulatory and other barriers limiting the expansion of water reuse and develop technical assistance resources to expand water reuse and recycled water programs within the state. The department will develop guidance for local jurisdictions and other organizations on how to seek permitting, development of recycled water, and so on and so on. But that's the kind of thing, it's like, we don't in this state have the policies and procedures or the laws to allow for water reuse or the permitting processes or things like that. The Westminster effort was a good first step. But now we need to expand upon that, particularly with our need at the time to look at other options for our plant. And so I've shared this with HJM and said, hey, what's your read on this?
HJM's our lobbyist for anyone.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes. Harris, Jones, and Malone, our lobbyists, to look at this and kind of tell me what their thoughts were. And then my plan tonight was to read this to you and kind of get your thoughts to say, is this something we would like to pursue or get out in front of the legislature? But I think it has a good synergy with what we're asking for in the LAR to MML.
I want to say that I applaud the town manager for doing this because, you know, I think this is, as we've talked about before, the biggest project in the history of Centreville. We got to get it right. We've talked about the barriers to this sort of adoption in these meetings many, many times. And I think just sort of taking this on his own initiative, having the information from countless meetings that we've had on this, kudos to you for getting this done. Anything we can do to be helpful, let me know, let us know. But thank you.
And if I had a crystal ball, I would guess that MML doesn't get thousands of these forms a year. I'm sure they get plenty to have to prioritize from, but hey, we're in the running. I think this is a timely issue for the entire state and country.
Yeah.
And I want to echo, I'm so glad we're submitting something because 2 years ago, you know, I asked the question, have we gone to the state for any of this, for money for the plant, for the regulatory changes that we need. And I was told, no, it's not the way that we operate. And so I love that this is the way that we now operate, that we are pushing forward with asking for what we need. We're not going to get what we don't ask for. And so on the money front, we've had some really good early success, and I hope that we have some really good early success on the policy front, and Centreville can be a leader in more than just plastic bags and cannabis growing.
So I had the luxury of serving on the legislative committee for MML for several years. They get a wide range of numbers of these each year. Could be half a dozen, could be 30. It depends on what the municipalities are up to. A lot of the ones that were considered, and let me say they boil it down to 2 or 3 that they will pursue. That's all that they can really have the appetite to really dig into. Sometimes these need to be repeated year after year to gain traction. I would encourage you to send a supplement to this that expands your answers from what you had to do with a short fuse. I think also having some other municipalities weigh in favor of this as well will make the legislative committee understand that this isn't a one-off, that this could have impact. We say it has impact statewide, but I think they would appreciate hearing that others could benefit from this change as well. You might refer to specific laws that would be addressed. So, look in this chapter of state code, whichever one it is, who knows. I'm not saying write the legislation, but I'm saying just point to areas so they could go look at it and see what it says now, and then in general, how you'd like to see that changed. I think that will increase our odds of success.
And I'm guessing because you've served on that committee, if you had 2 of these in front of you and one was this and one had the supplement, you're probably going to lean more to the one that does some of the work for you.
Yeah, it makes it easier on staff to advocate to the committee for which ones they can pursue, and it also gives them a head start on understanding the issue instead of, you understand it really well.
Yeah.
And so writing 2 sentences to you covers the topic. To somebody that's never seen this before, they're going to need a paragraph.
Well, that's where the piece from Oregon came from, is digging to say, who else is doing this, and where can I, as you all figured I'd like to do, is I'm going to poach wherever anybody else's staff has expended effort to save ours. And so we got that. We're talking to the water reuse folks on a regular basis to say, what is moving. There was
attach the Westminster legislation so they have a head start.
Yeah.
They see what the state of Maryland has done.
Right. And when we went to the Secretary's Roundtable last year at MML, it was my first one. It was a bit frenetic. We also had a placeholder in place for MDE. So Kip and I had a good talk with him, but you really didn't walk away feeling like we got any traction. This year, the new MDE Secretary, Serena McElwain, was the Deputy Director of EPA for California. She was dialed in from the minute we started talking about water reuse, and we gave her the exemplars that you've been briefed on where there have been failures, and Dan was there, Kip was there. We walked away with, I want to meet with you guys, let's set up a meeting. And other people, and I don't want to pat myself and my staff on the back, other people went and they just complained. Nobody was asking to get the meeting. That I need your time, I'm going to need an effort. We have an ask that we're going to come to you with. Because we met with Senator Jennings on budget. I also had a Zoom call with the Vice Chair for Environment and Transportation, Delegate Joyce, to talk to her about our needs here. And I kind of geek out on this stuff. I have a lot of fun with it when I'm dealing with them. But I think we're making good inroads to get some of the stuff we need to do so that we can get the plant we want and get it paid for.
Any further discussion on this?
Do you need formal action in our minutes or anything for them?
I don't know if it has to be in the minutes, but if you approve, the council approves by consent legislative action request to be approved.
Certainly, I think we do, and I would also be inclined to sign a letter, a more formal letter.
I can do that.
And if we want to shop it out to other towns that are sort of staring down the barrel of this issue, maybe we ought to do that, to Councilman Beecham's point. With that, we'll move to,
If I could interrupt you for just a second. I mean, the last thing in here, please indicate the date of the meeting where the governing body of the municipality, chapter, or department endorsed, approved this request. You satisfied that we have adequately documented that we've endorsed or approved this?
well, previous to June 30, we haven't endorsed formally this LAR.
No, we hadn't. I asked him, I said, our
And the date
meeting's
on
in-
here is 20 July. It's
Yeah,
today's date.
I told him, I said, I don't have a meeting till 20 July, and he said, go ahead and put the date.
You were just making sure that a consensus is enough.
Yeah.
That's sort of what I was asking too, is should we just do a vote for the sake of being able to say the council voted and
Sure.
however.
I move
it
that
broke
the
down.
town of Centreville submit a MML legislative request, an LAR, to pursue legislation that expands the availability of discharge options for wastewater treatment plants.
Second.
Who's
Call the
who's
roll.
claiming it? You are. Councilman Beecham?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes, absolutely.
President Clyde?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
We do know our names.
it's getting late.
We'll move into Maryland Municipal League updates, if there are any.
I'm going to ask Councilmember Worth if he would address MML, since you were at the annual conference in Ocean City and none of the rest of us were. So can you give the MML update on my behalf?
I've got stuff on it too, so.
Yeah, the town manager has some as well, but yes, I attended the conference. It was nice to have the staff there to kind of show me the way, how to get cut in front of lunch lines and things like that. I managed to, I was so busy, I managed to avoid going to any of the vendors in the Great Hall. The most useful things were a session on the Public Information Act. That went into great detail, probably could have lasted a lot longer. A lot of questions on that. The small town discussion was related to how do you keep police officers. That seemed to be what most of the municipalities were having concerns about, attracting and keeping police officers. And what's the other one? Went to a session on code compliance. The code compliance officer for City of Salisbury led that session, and they're a large city. There's certain things that we wouldn't be able to do, but one thing they did was he kind of pointed out, like, once people are made aware of their non-compliance, they tend to comply. Most of the time they still don't know it, and they've been trying to do more outreach. They actually have like neighborhood meetings where they have hot dogs and hamburgers or something like that, and get the neighbors together and it kind of explain the city code. So I don't know if we want to do anything like that.
The
Uh,
code would be cute.
Right.
I just want to know if they have liability insurance if they're out in the
That's
street.
what I'm curious. Who's ensuring this little code gathering?
I'll be sure to ask them about that. So yeah, it's very useful, and hope somebody else gets to go next year. So
I'll just add to what he said since we're talking about it. The sessions were far better. The PIA was good, but they allowed questions in session. So you get these rabbits where somebody would ask a question and then the next three people just complained about it, rather than getting to the data. And sometimes they had to accelerate through the briefing, but largely it was good. The secretary roundtables, every cabinet secretary was there this year, and the governor and the lieutenant governor. It was a tremendous turnout, and they were engaged. We had good meetings with MDE, Department of Transportation, and Commerce, getting follow-up meetings for all. And I told you about the Zoom call I had with Vice Chair Boyce. There were some in the legislative review, some of them were really fascinating. The SB 11, which was the speed cameras that have to be within a half mile of a school. Senate Bill 11 wanted to move that to within 1,000 feet. It did not make it out of the House, but they were fairly confident, the team there, that was probably going to come back up again. And since we have talked about things with speed cameras, it's germane to us. The Senate Bill 330, which is filed as House Bill 330, it looks like my 5, but I'll have to check, is to help fund or reduce the cost for purchase body-worn cameras for police officers. Senate Bill 114 was not cross-filed, but it was voted on in both houses. That is the constant yield language change, both the formula and an SDAT, and there's no longer a need to notify unless raising the constant yield, so that does not need to be published in the paper if we don't raise it next year in our budget. Senate Bill 518 on zombie properties, that if there's a foreclosure or repossession, that there is a number of different ways that a municipality can put their thumbprint on that and have that property deeded to them. That's going to take a lot more reading and probably be a Sharon. Senate Bill 287 and House Bill 509 on State Board of Elections. They're posting and reporting on election results on their website within 30 days. Senate Bill 516, House Bill 556, cannabis reform, which we've talked about earlier. I talked about the revenue streams possible from that. To follow up on that one piece, on the 10th of August, there's a cannabis symposium. They had limited seating. They get into the zoning, the residential buffers, things of this nature, the HR aspects of it. So we got a number of seats to that, so we'll be at that symposium to kind of understand what we talked about earlier. What are the things that are going to promulgate down from the state level with that law so that we can better understand it. And with that is my wrap up on MML.
Council of Governments,
We meet again in September.
Economic Development,
I have nothing significant to report at this time.
Park Advisory Board,
I do not want to ask this, but sometimes you just do what Norma tells you to do. So, do you have a suggested movie for the movie night at the Wharf Park in September? Which we've already said to save the date, but you are welcome to come volunteer on September 9th at the Fishing Derby from 4 to 6, or the movie night at 8 p.m., and need to know if the council has a suggested movie for that gathering.
I would ask your kids, because they're right around that age, of what they think would be a good movie.
interesting.
There's a new documentary on Discovery Channel called Filleting Nemo.
Chip would like us to watch a documentary about wastewater treatment plants.
That's crappy.
Oh, God.
I can ask my kids. Or we can make a decision.
Or a decision. I have no idea what movies are.
I don't know either.
I feel like Councilmember Johnson is like,
I have one, but
Yes, you do.
upon further reflection, as folks were talking, I think there might be some language, but I'll just say it anyway, just because it's a good movie. Pixels, which has some more modern stuff. It's got a lot of 80s stuff in it, so it's got kind of some throwbacks. It's a comedy. I think it is family friendly, but there might be some language, so. I'll mention that more in case anybody's interested in the movie in
Yeah,
general.
we did do E.T., a couple of years ago, and I think it might have a couple words in there.
I got big Jaws energy, but
I would love for it to be Jaws.
last time I
personally.
said
Goonies,
Jaws,
Goonies.
last time I said Jaws, people said it's not family friendly, and
People loved when we did E.T. because it was kind of the throwback.
So
but
I'm a
not
big
Goonies.
Goonies fan, and there
Me
are a
too.
lot of folks, our kids' generation up here, some younger, who have said online, this is a hidden gem from the 80s that, you gotta see.
I do love the Goonies.
I do too.
That's two.
I could not be any more indifferent. So,
All right, well, I will talk to the Parks Board about this movie that I've never heard of, and the Goonies, and whatever suggestions the council president's children might have. I will refrain from asking my child. The answer will be Wall-E and nothing else if I do. So
It's a good movie.
let us know.
I will. All right, the Planning Commission last night moved to turn their next scheduled work session, which will be August, the first Wednesday in August.
Second.
right?
Second,
That's right.
August 2nd.
August 2nd, they have a scheduled work session. They are now going to, they're going to change that to a special session, which is is our code or their bylaws that require, they made that motion last night, that they're doing that so they can do final approval of the comprehensive plan. And they need, they made some final changes last night. There's a few things that have to be, I think typos have to be worked through, but we're going to get this thing, soon after that meeting. And I think we need to sort of start to think about an expeditious timeline for our own hearing. We will have to have a hearing. They've had 2 hearings. We'll have to have our own hearing as well. And I just want to really emphasize that people are going to have to spend some time with this document before and after that hearing here on this council. This is an important document. It sets the stage for the next decade or more of the town. And the Planning Commission has poured a ton of energy into this document. And I think it deserves our full review, and their work deserves our respect, I think, in that way. And there are some pretty substantial changes to the way some properties are zoned, and I think also a discussion that we need to have about the PUD and the PUD process moving forward. So that's implied there, but it requires further action from us after the fact. But we need to get this, I think, through to being done.
Can we just schedule a public hearing for September or something?
We could. I think we talked about the second meeting in September being the meeting we tried to get on our agenda for this. So that would be the
21st.
Yeah, the 21st of September would be the public hearing for the comprehensive plan here.
We get a presentation of some kind ahead of that?
So that's actually a good question, Councilperson Worth, because our town planner, our consulting planner, is leaving the town's employ. He has announced, it's now public, that he is going to be the new Director of Planning for the city of Annapolis. So it's a good question about who would give that presentation. I think the Planning Commission could give it and walk through, but again, I think we have to spend some time with it.
Right, we do.
In our various homes and whatever. That is the Planning Commission update that I've got. If we could, just in the interest of time, the council has been here quite some time tonight, so if we could, just have the town manager call on who he thinks is essential to hear from tonight.
I just have, you've heard from most of my staff. I've got, we've gone through most of what I had. There was some discussions with the folks in the business park. They want to finish Laser Drive around the Courceville. And there's a change of a cul-de-sac, so they're going to prep some stuff for Planning Commission. Sharon, Carolyn and I had a meeting referring to the livability standards and rental units. If a renter in town has a call and there's a problem with the house, we don't have right of access, and the county says that's in the town. So we don't handle that. So we're looking at ways that we can either harness their resources that you can do the inspections for us in town, or to put our own standards in and codify those. So we're going to be prepping something for.
I've brought up multiple times exploring a rental registry and a rental licensing. Are we looking at, again, if we had policies in place, we would have right to access pursuant to their permit.
Correct. So this is more if the tenant calls in and says, I don't have heat, my landlord won't give it to me.
Right, but if we put a policy in place and a rental registry in place, then we would have access.
We have to,
as part of that permit.
Right, we have to adopt the livability code, which we do not have, correct?
Well, we have the 2009, we have to update it to the 2012.
We have to update it, yeah.
I would just like to see these done in tandem, because I feel like I've been asking for this for a long time.
Yeah, you have, and we've started that discussions to kind of move that forward. I don't know how many of you have paid attention to the fixed lakeside stuff that's down in Talbot County, but there was an interesting article that I read about this where there were a lot of pitfalls with things related to EDUs and capacities for their plant or for discharge that were incongruent. and MDE pinged on them, and there's a lot of administrative pieces related to that. So I'm going to meet with the developer to kind of understand what kind of things that they missed when dealing with MDE, specifically because we have gone through the availability of EDUs and the phased development of the Carter Farm, which is similar to what they're doing in Lakeside, so that we can learn from their mistakes and kind of go through that.
Before you go any further, I just want to say for the sake of the council, Carter Farm is to Lakeside at Trapp as a mouse is to an elephant. So I wouldn't want anybody to take that too literally, what you just said. 2,500 units, 65,000 square feet of commercial space.
No, my emphasis is on the permitting and the administrative stuff with MDE that they got tripped up on. We've started work on our 5-year budget. We started talking about it last year and making some moves to do it, but absent the plan and the comprehensive plan, more importantly, that kind of lays out council's vision for the next decade and building budgets that will allow the support of that plan, there wasn't a lot of room to kind of say what direction are we going. We'll be able to corral around that. And that's all for tonight.
Anybody?
Chief Hobbs, did you want to quickly go through your report, or is that pretty self-explanatory what you've submitted to the council?
While the chief is coming up to the microphone, I just wanted to highlight something in his department, specifically with him and his command staff. As you all know, we had the tragic death of Officer Farrah Kane in May. We have some police officers that are in the academy right now, and as a result, they're short-staffed. And when I stopped in recently and asked if the chief was around, they said no, he's working tonight. And I just wanted to applaud anytime our supervisors, our chief of police, and your command staff step up to augment staffing during times that others may not choose to do that is phenomenal. So thank you for that, Chief.
Thank you, Councilman. On behalf of saving time here this evening, I won't touch on any of the bullet points on the reviews. They're readily available for you to peruse at your leisure. The one thing I would like to remind the council and the community members of is this August 1st is our annual National Night Out here in town on Lawyers Row. We are hosting it, and it is from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., 8:30-ish roughly.
August 1st?
August 1st, yes.
Thank you.
And it's free to the community.
Thank you.
Look forward to it.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Anything else critical from the staff?
No, sir.
All right, Citizens Forum. All right. Council Roundtable, Mr. Beecham.
Nothing significant to report. Thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. Worth.
Let's see, last week I attended a ribbon cutting for Foundation's Island Yoga. Forgot to mention when I was at MML, I talked to David Foster, the mayor of Chestertown, and he wants to work with MML to make the tax set-off a requirement. I guess Kent County doesn't have any, doesn't provide any tax set-off to Chestertown, and told him that we had worked with with Queen Anne's County and how to do that. If he was interested in what we had come up with, give us.
Lost in court on that. They have, Chestertown has.
Right, yeah, but they want to get state law straightened out. Yeah.
I think it's may, not shall.
Oh, sorry.
That's what it says now.
Right, and so it becomes shall.
Yeah.
That's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now, the law is they may provide it.
It's a may, right.
There's a specific list of counties that are a shall, and everybody else is a may.
Right. It must be a shall, but, I said, what does that mean? Because they could say, here's your $10, okay.
They could.
Right. Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that's all.
Mr. Johnson.
Very briefly, on Monday, July 24th at 7 p.m., as some of you have seen at the Vincent Building, the festivities and beautification team, community-based group, has recommended starting a Christmas committee for the town. Just for the record, I had talked to our town clerk and made sure she understood it is not to take the place of anything that is already working very well, so she was very happy to hear that. But an opportunity to really integrate volunteers, maybe have a theme for the parade early enough to where we could promote it as a town-wide theme for house decorating, some window decorating contests, you name it. So for everybody at home, anybody here that wants to join in, again, that's Monday, July 24th at 7 p.m. at the Vincent Building.
Wonderful. Ms. Kaiser.
The only thing I have is that August 4th will be First Fridays for August, right here in the town square. Just pray that the forecast is good. I'm kicking myself for canceling July, but it said it was gonna be really scary out there. So August 4th, 6 to sundown, correct?
Yes. I'm unfortunately going to have to take a little bit of time here to talk about the preserve at Centreville HOA. They have got a piece of property on, the HOA owns a piece of green space, about 9 acres. This is for a 20-house HOA on Cypress Street in Centreville Heights. The HOA would like to dissolve itself. And it needs to divest, the HOA needs to divest itself of this piece of property. And there is, on the plat for the property, there is permission granted to the town to run a trail through the property. And this permission is essentially keeping them from divesting themselves of the property because people don't want to take it on with this potential access component in the future, and they have asked us to consider eliminating the permissions on the plat for the trail. I think on top of this, we also it's a very good thing that we have a master trails plan, but that master trails plan, to the extent that it puts real lines on real maps, which it does, can create some angst for people because I don't know how much thought has been given to where those lines are and how realistically it is that those trails will even ever be there. But when an HOA sees permissions for a trail and then a master trail plan that's got kind of a network of trails across this piece of property, they get a little nervous about what that means. And I just wanted to put it in front of this council to talk about the willingness. We are all committed to trails and walkability. But I think, in this case, a very small parcel is contiguous to no other parts of the trail right now. And, I just am curious if we could have a conversation, or at least with the town attorney, about how we would go about eliminating this if we were interested in doing that. I don't want to waste anybody's time if they absolutely don't want to do this. I would also say that the property is not all that amenable to a trail. Pretty steep, and it's pretty wet. It's non-tidal wetlands back there. We own the pumping station that's on the property, and there's also a stormwater retention pond on the property that's pretty small with a modest responsibility to the HOA to upkeep that. But I just throw that out there for something that I'd like to talk about in the future if we can't do it tonight.
Yeah, I was wondering about the stormwater management pond. We got to make sure that's maintained, that we don't end up having to maintain it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that would be some of the trade-off.
So will this be a resolution? We need to draft something up, or can we do it in a less formal way?
I think since we're releasing a property interest, we should do it by an ordinance.
Okay. Okay. Is there enough interest in this? We could certainly have the HOA come in and appear before us if we thought that would be helpful and talk through kind of what they're thinking.
I mean, we have made, in my opinion, people appear for a little bit sillier things, so it might not hurt to
Okay.
have someone from the HOA, but I'm amenable to, I think it'd be silly not to make the change.
Okay.
I'd like to hear from the Parks Board on this and how they view that trail potential.
Okay. Should we move forward with a resolution before that, or no? Do we have 3 people that want to move forward with the resolution?
I'm fine with
Yeah.
that.
Okay. All right, we'll draft something up and then run it by the Parks Advisory Board. It also raises the question of that trails master plan.
Right.
Which I don't think has been approved. We can't,
I'll look and I'll double check.
I'm not sure. It's
Is it incorporated into the comp plan that we've just talked about?
footnoted in the comp plan. It is not.
Not graphically represented in the
No,
comp.
no. And it does, there's certainly trails in the growth area where it's not even in town yet. So it is highly speculative. I think for people that don't do this every day, they don't understand, they don't fully up to speed, and they think this stuff's coming, and they're not gonna have a say in what it looks like, which I assured the HOA was not the case, that we like to involve the communities in these sorts of things. And generally, our commitment to trails has been on public land, land that we own, and in new developments that are coming down the pike. So I think the HOA is in a better place, but they definitely want to end the HOA. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
The Orioles won.